Let's see if this works. We are live on the live stream on the pre-show. This is our pre-show. We are getting ready to go here with the 221,001 A+ study group. If you're watching this on a replay, you can. I don't want to show you too much of this. That's cheating. That's all the questions and answers. Hi everybody. Hi chat room. Welcome. We've got all Q&A today on the 221,001. So this is for the Core 1 exam to get all those done. We've got plenty of things to go through today. We've got all questions in the first hour. I'll ask you questions. You'll answer me. And then in the second hour, I open up the phone lines. You can ask me questions really about, well, almost anything. This is not the show. So I've had people send me emails saying, I tried to watch. It was just the back of your head. Like you have to shift ahead. So about 10 minutes from now, 9 minutes from now, we get started. If you're watching this on a replay there, about a day after, my marketing manager, Lori, creates all of the timestamps. So you can jump around if you want to. Jump around, jump around. Maybe that dates me a bit, a lot. Hey, chat room. How's everybody doing? Canada's checking in. Bangladesh is here. I think I turned down the wrong air conditioning because I don't feel it on. No, that's the right one. It says it's offline. Well, that's always good. My air conditioning is offline just when I need it to be online. So that's always good. Now, the real question is, why is it offline? Well, you know why it's offline? Because I'm doing a live stream. That's why it's offline. The rest of the time, it's perfectly available and working exactly as one would expect. Well, that says it's now on. I am feeling nothing. Oh, now it kicked in. So I don't know what that was. A lot of people in the chat room. Plenty there. Birmingham. Florida's here. Hey, Florida people. Atlanta, Bulgaria, Barbados, Canada, New York. Charlotte's here. Rome, New York is here. El Paso, welcome. Sussex, welcome. A lot of people from all over the world. All over the world. Yeah, it's the first question. Why is the air conditioning offline? Why is Nest not telling me that I have air conditioning? That's our first question. I think we're ready to go. Let's check real quick. Recordings. Obviously, the stream is working. That is the OBS that is running, that is sending you all the stream data. So it's a picture and a picture and a picture and a picture. We have Inception going on to the upper left. This is the chat room. So this is what I'll be seeing you guys during the live stream. Are we recording down here? Yep, you can see the Cylons down here recording. OBS is recording locally. The two Cylons down here are recording locally. So recordings are good. I'm saying that out loud so I know it's the case. I've got all of you can't see it, but I can see all of the camera angles. The camera things are working. So that's good as well. Dallas is here. Houston, London, Virginia Beach, Pittsburgh, Albuquerque. The UK is here again. Hello, welcome. Miami, welcome. Cayocho. I haven't been down there in a while. Need to get down there. Minneapolis, East Africa, welcome. Louisiana, Yorkshire, England is here. Rockford, Illinois. Ghana, welcome. San Francisco, Bangkok, Dallas. That's good. Well, I can't. It's Taco Tuesday. It's hard to compete with that. GameCuber 7. So watch it on the replay and you'll be good to go. And you'll have a full belly. So that's good too. There's Ontario. Welcome. And we got kinfolk in Hamilton. So in Hamilton and in Vancouver. So on both sides of the country. So that's why Canada is always comes up to do that. There's Washington State. Welcome. More Texas and El Paso. Hello, Tokyo. Welcome. Haven't been there in a while. Need to get back there. There's Orlando. Thanks for checking in. California. Good to have you here. One of the things that we'll do today is all 221,001. I'm glad I finally broke these out. We did this over a year ago. We broke these out into a Core 1 and a Core 2. So if you're here today for the Core 1, we do the Core 2 on Thursday. That's how it's set up this week or this month anyway. So if you like this, you can come back to Thursday and we'll do it again. We have about 5 minutes until we get started. Headsets are working okay. I think I'm pretty good shape. I always go live about 10 minutes early worried that something is going to go awry. I try to set this whole thing up about an hour. Actually, it's all running ready to go about an hour ahead. So nothing moves for an hour. I know that it's ready to go, but occasionally something will go just a little bit askew, a little bit that way. So we never know how things are going to go till we get in it. Fortunately today, no bad weather. Internet has been relatively stable. I will be doing this for Security Plus. There's A Plus this week on Tuesday and Thursday. Network Plus is Wednesday of next week, and Security Plus the Wednesday after that. If you ever want to know when the next live event is going to be, go to professormesser.com/calendar, or just look on the right sidebar on any page of the website, and you'll see the list of events. I don't think I've posted the ones. Have I posted the ones for July yet? Probably not, because that would involve me doing a little bit of extra work. Maybe I did. Let's go to professormesser.com and see what happens. What could go wrong? Let's see if it's on. I don't think I put them there. I think I was going back and forth. I have not. So I'll be adding the July one shortly. I think I was going back and forth over exactly how I wanted to handle July 1st and July 4th, which are holidays here in North America. So I've got to figure out how we want to do that. And I think I'm just going to keep going with the same schedule and do it the same way we always did to keep going. This will be available to watch after the live stream, immediately available. I push the stop button. YouTube takes a couple minutes to process the video. And then assuming there was nothing really crazy that has to be edited out, it's immediately available. That's not always that way, but most of the time it's that way. It's immediately available for those. The nice thing about this, though, is you're able to see everything live, immediately see it afterwards, and then I just leave it there. So I don't have to do anything on my side, which is kind of nice. Very useful. How do you do this? I will explain exactly this process and how everything works at the beginning of the show. Do not worry. We've got about 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. We'll get things going. The deal is, what equipment am I using? A lot of different kinds of equipment. If you ever want to see just what is this stuff? What is this mixer? What is this video switcher? What camera is it using? It's on the website. It's either on the link on the main page or go to professormesser.com/studio. And I've got everything listed there. Even my in-ear monitors, the type of video switching equipment. I don't even know if I put my mouse in there. My mouse is not working right. The button, the left mouse button is not working properly. It's not always registering a click. And there's nothing more irritating than that, but that's where we are with this mouse. I've ordered a new mouse, but of course, it won't be here till Monday. So we're all going to struggle through this horrible mouse problem. It'll be all right. We'll figure it out. I'll just click multiple times, and then I complain about it, and then we keep it moving. It's simple, really. Okay. What else? I've been tempted. Do I troubleshoot the mouse? I was trying to, the way I do it, to see if it's the button, is I just get a big screen of text and highlight it and then move up and down, and I notice it unhighlights it so that there's some type of connection. So I'd have to take the mouse apart, and there's the screws on the bottom. Take those 3 screws out, get to the switch, and then assuming the switch is something that's fixable, we may just need a new switch, but I don't have a switch here in this room to do that with. I do have other mice. I could always pull another one in here and plug it in, and we'd be fine. And it may get to that point to be able to do that. So we'll figure it out to have all of those. We got a lot to go through today. I got plenty of questions. We'll be getting ready to go here in just less than a minute. But that's my mouse problems. That's the worst of our problems on this live stream. We're doing just fine. There's much worse problems to deal with. Fortunately, it's not the case. So we'll get all of that going. How's the background looking? I think we're okay. I think everybody says it's a fake background. It's not. It's a real background. I'm really looking at it and making sure I closed all the drawers and making sure nothing's falling over itself, and there's no clothes hanging on lamps or anything. Everything looks fine. I don't know why there would be clothes. There's no lamps. There's no clothes. But there you go. Let's see if we can't get this live stream started, though. Let's do some 220-1001 study group content, everybody. Let's get it going on the iPad. Hit the play button. Let's get it going on this side. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2020 Professor Messer 220-1001, or what they call the Core 1 A+ study group. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on this live stream. In this first hour, I'm going to ask you a lot of information about what's on the A+ exam. This comes all from the A+ exam objectives. I'll ask you questions and you answer them online. I'll explain to you how all of this works in just a moment. And then we will go through the process of opening up the phone lines in the second hour, and we'll have you call in and you can ask me questions. We're going to turn the whole thing around and be able to make that happen. But I do have questions that are available for you to ask right now. So let's see if I can get the instructions up on the screen and we'll get started. Here's how you do this. You want to pop open a new browser window and go to this URL, professormesser.com/QA. And that will take you right to this service called Socrative. It redirects you over to the Socrative website. There are also apps you can get to be able to do this. You want the Socrative student app, not just the teacher app. The teacher app is the one for me. Get the Socrative student app. It may ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, ProfessorMesser. And once you're there, that's it. Stay on that page and the questions will automatically change in front of you. In fact, if you do that, there's a question waiting for you right now that those who were here last month may recognize. It was a question we call our rewind question because it was one from last month. And if you find that page properly, the question will ask, which of these connection types would be the most common for mobile phones and tablets? Now, don't answer in the chat room. That's our number one rule. You want to instead go to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and you'll be able to answer this question. Which of these connection types would be the most common for mobile phones and tablets? Is it DB9, Lightning, PCIe, Thunderbolt, or RJ45? There are 5 different options there. Lock that in. See if you know what the answer is. We'll come right back to this answer in just a moment. Thanks for being here on the live stream. So nice to have you here. We've got a lot of places you can go when we aren't having a live stream to find out what's happening. Make sure you subscribe to what we're doing on YouTube. You can go to professormesser.com/YouTube and plug in your subscription. That's always useful. And it's very nice because it gives me an opportunity to also show the people at YouTube that you help support the site too. And that allows us to do some extra special things over on the YouTube side as well. You always hear people say, please subscribe. And that's why, because it does help us on the backside of things. You're able to see videos and get information even faster, and we're able to talk back to YouTube and give them some ideas for new features. Don't forget about our daily pop quiz questions on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, or you can get those pop quiz questions on Instagram. Go to professormesser.com/Instagram. There's also a way that you can help support the site. You don't even have to buy anything. Simply go to professormesser.com/Amazon if you're buying something from Amazon. You don't have to buy anything from the Professor Messer website. It's just a pass through. And then anything you buy on Amazon, we get a small refinder's fee, if you will, a small commission. Those little commissions add up over time. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does help support the site. That link again, professormesser.com/Amazon. If you are watching this for continuing education unit credit, listen somewhere in this first hour. I will give you instructions on how you can get one of these continuing education unit credit emails from me. So I'll tell you all about it. It's somewhere in the first hour. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm not going to tell you how. You have to listen in. That's part of doing it. So that's one way to go throughout the process. Everything we do today is going to come from the 220-1001 exam. It's also called the Core 1 exam. You have to pass both the 1001 and the 1002 to earn your A+ certification. This is an exam series that was released on January 15th, so just over a year ago, almost a year and a half ago at this point. We've got some exam requirements that you have to pass and get a 675 as your score on the 220-1001 exam. The scale is between 100 and 900. So of those 800 points available, you have to get 575 of those. So that's sort of it's an odd scale. It's an odd testing. During this 90-minute time frame, you may get as many as 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90 questions during that 90-minute time frame. Very often you do get fewer than that. If you're someone who's been studying for the 900 series exam and you've now made the shift over to the 1000 series, there is quite a bit of new content. Just over 20% of the content's brand new. If you'd like to see an explanation of what exactly is new, I've highlighted that for you at this link, professormesser.com/objectives, and you can find all of those things. Today, we're talking about the 1001 exam. So all the questions will be about mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, or hardware and network troubleshooting. This is also a place where a lot of people say, I like your course notes, I like your practice exams, I like your videos. Can I just get everything all bundled together in one single group? Yes, you can, finally. This is called the Professor Messer Success Bundle for the 220-1001, where I give you all of my videos offline. You can download them, put them on your computer or your mobile devices, all of them as audio files as well as MP3 files, all of my course notes for the 1001, my practice exams. I have an exclusive exam hacks ebook that gives you tips on how to study for the exam. They always seem to leave that part out of the books and study materials, but studying for the exam and techniques that you can use when taking the exam are documented in my exam hacks ebook. There's also special study group access for sending me questions. You can find out all about this on my website at professormesser.com/1001success, 1001 success. There's also links from the main page to be able to get to that as well. Don't forget that this video is available to watch on replay immediately afterwards. There's also a podcast audio version of this available at professormesser.com/podcast. You can put it in your podcasting program and be able to listen anytime you would like, wherever you happen to be. Also, if you wait about a day afterwards, my marketing manager, Lori, hi, Lori. She is the one that goes through and listens to this whole thing all over again and puts timestamps in. Turns out these timestamps are very useful because now YouTube is starting to roll out a new feature that will put the explanation of what you're watching on the video viewer itself, which is kind of nice. They're still in the process of rolling it out, but it's going to use those timestamps. So it's great that they're there, not just so you can find what you want, but so you can see what's going on the live stream as well. Those course notes I mentioned are a great way for you to save time because there are 137 videos in my A+ series, and you'd have to watch every single one of them and take your own notes. If you just need the notes, you can, of course, purchase them individually. If you want more information on that, they are at professormesser.com/1001 notes. And for those of you that have never seen it before, the notes are pretty useful. I've got them on my screen right here. So I'm just kind of flipping through a few pages of them. So everything that's in the video is right there. And you can either purchase them as a digital PDF file, or you can purchase a physical version like the one I have here. There's the course notes. They come in actual printed form, made from dead trees. See, there, who said there wasn't a use for all of that logging? There it is right there. We've got capabilities. And of course, we use renewable paper. And I think everybody pretty much does these days. I live in a part of the world where we do a ton of logging. And as soon as we cut them down, we plant new ones. Because why wouldn't you? Makes perfect sense. And sometimes it's nice to have a printed document. And that's what that is that printed document, to have those things there. Let's talk about that question that we just talked about. Which of these connection types would be most common for mobile phones and tablets? The options available were DB9 or are DB9, Lightning, PCIe, Thunderbolt, and RJ45. This question tends to throw people off a bit because the type of connection they were looking for isn't in this list. And that is a very common method used on the exam. You have to read the question very carefully because the question asks which of these connection types would be most common for mobile phones and tablets. It's not saying what is the most common interface for mobile phones and tablets in the world. It's saying of this list of finite things, of these 5 items, which one does it happen to be? Let's see what you think. 85% of you say Lightning. That's a pretty big number. 12% say Thunderbolt, and only 1% apiece said DB9, PCIe, and RJ45. And for those of you familiar with the Apple type of connector, then that would be the Lightning. Lightning is a very common connector. Slowly moving away from Lightning, very, very slowly, apparently. We thought we were going to move away from Lightning on this next version of the iPhone, but now rumors say that perhaps we'll keep Lightning around for a while. So that Lightning is absolutely in that list of things, the only mobile interface that's really used on those devices. Most people will think about using a micro USB or USB-C, which of course are also used on mobile devices, but you'll notice micro B and USB-C not listed here. So those would not be options available. Lightning is the right answer. If you answered B, the 85% of you got that one absolutely right. Thunderbolt was an answer here, but Thunderbolt, although a very common interface on computers, is not one that's used on mobile devices. So that would not be one that you could use. DB9, very commonly used as serial connections on infrastructure devices. So if you need to configure a router, configure a firewall, configure a switch, you often might use a DB9 to be able to do that. You also have PCIe, which is an interface type on motherboards, not commonly used on mobile devices. And RJ45 is the connector type used most commonly on Ethernet. So Ethernet is one that you don't often find on a mobile device either. The only one in this list, not just the most common, but really the only option here is indeed Lightning, answer B. So now we've got the idea here. We've got the method for being able to connect and be able to answer these questions. Let's do some new questions. And for those of you that have been on my live streams before, you know that the very first question of the month, very first new question of the month, is a performance-based question. The performance-based question is a question that is anything but multiple choice. And that means the performance-based question, although many people think that the performance-based question is a simulation where they're put in a command prompt or put in a Windows screen and they're asked to perform functions, it almost commonly is not a simulation. It can be anything. It could be fill in the blank. It could be a matching question. It could be one where you have to put things in a particular order. It could be one where you have to find the definitions. It could be anything to have that there. So I have a performance-based question for you, and let me show you how you can answer this question. Our performance-based question is more of a visual one. So if you're watching on the podcast, you may want to skip over the performance-based question of the month. I have 5 interfaces listed on the screen, A, B, C, D, and E. So this is a fill in the blank effectively. I've got just a blank area. I guess I should make you available to have that there. Now you can put your answers in online. And these 5 different interfaces are something I would like you to put into professormesser.com/QA. Again, no answering in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. We don't want to have those happen either. So that is one where you always want to go through this and be able to figure out what these happen to be. Now, in this one is one where you're able to get into these interfaces and answer these. Yeah, some of you are answering this. This is our service called Socrative, professormesser.com/QA. Takes you right to Socrative. And some of you are saying, well, the Socrative, I thought only allows 150 students in a room. Yes, but I've been on Socrative a very long time. And I was here well before that 150 students per room apparently was there. I've not talked to them specifically about it. I'm just kind of letting it ride. So don't say anything to the Socrative people. We're just going to let that one go. Yeah, the pro plan I've been on for a long time because we've been doing these live streams for these study groups for years now. You can go back and look at the archive of all of our study groups. And if you're studying for your exam, I highly recommend it. I always put the links to the study groups that apply to that exam at the bottom of the page of my index page on my website. So that's how you'd be able to go back and watch the replays and know which ones apply to the 1001 or the 1002 or the Network Plus or the Security Plus. They're all there. You can step through all of them. So these 5 interfaces, these are relatively common interfaces. All 5 of them obviously listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you are familiar with them all. It's kind of hard to get a perspective because there's no context here. I don't show you where these particular interfaces are located. I'm just giving you, they are effectively to relative size. So compared to each other, they are relative to each other the correct size for these. Close enough anyway. I had to kind of eyeball it as I was putting them in. But this is one where all 5 of them are relatively common these days. None of these are unusual to find anywhere. So see if you happen to know what they happen to be. Some of them are kind of tricky because at least one, maybe 2 of them not quite as common as the others. So we'll see how we do with these to be able to get those. No, A and D are, D is probably not as close to scale as I would like. D is probably a little small. So thank you for your comments in the chat room about how I'm horrible at scale. I think we've now gotten that down and we're pretty clear that I don't see things properly size-wise. It's all context, isn't it? E does look weird, but it's real. So that's how those work. Let's go through each one of these interfaces and see if we happen to know what they are. Let's start with the first one. The first one I even mentioned already to know what these happen to be. The first one on the list was a USB. In fact, it's the new USB-C connector. It's the one that you're finding on newer tablets, on newer phones, on newer computers. You're seeing a lot of USB-C. Even on the newest Xbox controller, it's USB-C connected. So everybody's using that USB-C connection to be able to use that. Interestingly enough, B is also USB. That's probably the easiest one on this list. It's the USB Type A connector. So it's the one you plug it in and doesn't fit right. So you have to turn it over and plug it in. And then it doesn't fit right. And then you turn it over again, it fits right. That's the one. That's USB Type A. The poor USB people really realized very early on this was not working. Finally, they got to USB Type C, or what we call now USB-C. And it's one that works in either way. You can plug it in top to bottom, bottom to top. It doesn't have a top or the bottom to have that there. USB-C is not a Lightning connector. A Lightning connection is a completely different animal that is proprietary to Apple. USB-C is not an open standard, but is a standard that everybody's using, including Apple. The laptop that I have in front of me that you're seeing this on is connected and showing you this video through a USB-C connection, technically using Lightning over the USB-C connection. So USB-C refers to the physical connector type, and there's lots of different signals you can put over that connection to have those there. I think USB Type A is a more correct answer. So that's probably what you should know to be able to have those there. We also have answer C. This is one I think everybody probably will get. And as I'm looking through the list of things, a lot of people got HDMI on this one. They figured out, oh yes, that's HDMI. I'm familiar. Has that funny D-shaped connector. It's about the right size as HDMI to have those things there. Makes perfect sense to have that HDMI available. D was the one everybody said it's a little small, and you're correct. It is a little bit small to have those things there. D is an RJ45 connector. 8 pins, connections. It's close. These are not pictures of the interfaces, but a artist's rendition. And I am not the artist, or else you would not be able to recognize any of these things. But it's pretty close. It's not RJ11, and we know that because of the number of pins that are in there. Yes, RJ45 is a little bit wider. Thank you, everyone, for mentioning how bad I am with context and understanding exactly where these fit. E is probably the one that everybody kind of had a problem with. And E is effectively, we call it mini DisplayPort connection. But this mini DisplayPort connection is also commonly used by Thunderbolt. So although the interface is a mini DisplayPort interface, we very often run different signals over it, very much like the USB-C, where it's an interface that we can run many different kinds of connections over it. So you may be running video only over this with mini DisplayPort, or you may be connecting it with devices that are interoperating with Thunderbolt. So you may be connecting it to an external storage device. For example, I have a couple of storage devices here on my network. In fact, they're down here spinning around at the bottom. Those are connected to my system via Thunderbolt, and I'm able to pull data off of those drives through a Thunderbolt connection using that mini DisplayPort connection that's right there. So it does come in handy to have that functionality right there. If you've never used the Thunderbolt, it comes really, really useful to have that there. Very nice. To have that type of connectivity. And if you're not familiar with these, there's many, many other connectors you need to know on the exam. Make sure you're familiar with all of them. You could be asked about anything. That is our performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you were able to see those. And that was kind of a harder one because it was fill in the blank. Sometimes I'll do a matching, but I tried to make it a little bit harder this time, which I think was actually kind of fun. D is not the phone jack. Actually, D is the size of a phone jack, but is not a phone jack because it has 8 pins. Anyway, I think we got the idea of all of these, right? We figured out We now understand more about my ability to interpret art. We now understand more about my ability to not be able to use anything artistic. So hopefully so a performance-based question will not, in fact, it rarely is a simulation. It's a performance-based question. So hopefully that gives you a little more perspective on these. Let's see if we can do a multiple choice-based question that does not involve a graphic that is in a different format. Let's see how we do with this one. This question asks, here we go. I'll click it on my side so you can see it. Which of the following describes a drive that contains both flash memory and mechanical hard drive storage? Would it be dual? Would it be SSD? Would it be cached? Would it be SD-RAM? Or would it be hybrid? The question is, which of the following describes a drive that contains both flash memory and mechanical hard drive storage? If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. Lock in your answer at professormesser.com/QA. The possible answers are dual, SSD, cached, SD-RAM, and hybrid. If you don't know, take a guess. Some folks in the chat room saying, I don't know. I'm taking a guess. In fact, that's exactly what you should do on your exam, because we know that answering a question wrong doesn't count against you. It can only count for you. And if that's the case, you can, of course, take a guess and perhaps get some free points out of this. So never leave a question blank. That doesn't help you at all when you get into this. So make sure you're familiar with that technique, giving you a little insight into taking the exam and what you should know when it gets to those things. Whenever I start going through and breaking this down, one of the things I like to do is kind of figure out the things that it isn't, and then hopefully you can kind of break down like this and have those feel for those things. So that's one might be able to help you as well. So try to break down what you think it might be. We can always break those down from there. Which of the following describes a drive that contains both flash memory and mechanical hard drive storage? Let's see how you do. Getting a question wrong does not count against you. It does not. Getting a question wrong doesn't get you any points, but you don't lose points. Obviously, you want to get questions correct. The only time you gain points is when you answer a question correctly. You can't lose any of the points that you've already gained. That's what that means. Getting those and figuring out. So hopefully that gives you some context. Obviously, you don't want to answer a question wrong. Try to answer the questions as well as you can. This one asked, which of the following describes a drive that contains both flash memory and mechanical hard drive storage? How do we do? 84% of you say that's a hybrid drive, like they had in Star Trek. 7% of you said SSD, 5% said SD-RAM, 3% said dual, 2% said cached. So single digits for everything except answer E, hybrid. 84% of you said it was hybrid. In fact, a hybrid drive is one where, let's talk about it first, because I think where we kind of ended up drive-wise is the kind of drive you would like to be able to have in your desktop computer, in your laptop computer, everywhere these days is a solid-state drive, an SSD. It's the fastest. It's the most effective. It's the most efficient. I don't know about effective, but certainly efficient. Low latency. If you ever wanted the best upgrade ever for your computer, an SSD is absolutely it. It's so fast and so many different form factors to choose from to be able to work with this. But before we all jumped into SSDs they were very, very expensive. They were much more expensive than they were now. And there was this middle ground where we could have a traditional hard drive and then we could cache information on SSD. And they were all contained in the same unit. They look just like this 3.5-inch hard drive that's there. So it would have a traditional spinning hard drive inside. And then it would also have some SSD drive inside as well. And you would write to the SSD, be able to keep going on your computer. And in the meantime, it was writing to the slower drive underneath. So it was a little bit faster performance to be able to have that there. That is one that does come in handy. It does give you a little bit of performance, but these days it's hard to find a hybrid drive. We don't see very many hybrid drives. We're trying to transition everything to SSD. It's even hard to find magnetic disks these days unless you're probably putting them in very large storage subsystems I still use, of course, spinning magnetic disks on my my connected storage because it's less expensive than buying 25 or 30 terabytes of storage in SSD versus 30 terabytes of storage on a magnetic disk, and being able to work with RAID just makes sense whenever you work through those. So that makes sense to me, and it made sense to you too. 84% of you chose hybrid, answer E, to have that there. Dual is not a type of drive, just made it up, not even a real thing, not a drive, doesn't exist. Sorry. SSDs, we already talked about how an SSD drive is one that has just flash memory, no mechanical hard drive in an SSD. SD-RAM is the type of memory modules you would have inside of your computer, not a drive type at all, so would not be answer D. And a cached is also not a type of drive. It's what you would do with data, but it's not a type of drive, so that would not be the answer. The only one on this list that makes any type of sense, hybrid, is the right answer. 84% of you chose E. Let's do another question. Another multiple choice coming straight at you. This multiple choice question asks, a user has configured voice control for their home lighting. Which of the following protocols connects all of the IoT devices together? A user has configured voice control for their home lighting. Which of the following protocols connects all of the IoT devices together? Your possible answers are Zigbee, 802.11, NFC, Bluetooth, and RFID. The answers again are Zigbee, 802.11, NFC, Bluetooth, or RFID. So this is an important one. Make sure you read the question very carefully. This is not one that has two answers. There's only one answer. Users configure voice control for their home lighting. Which of the following protocols connects all of the IoT devices together? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you'll be able to lock in your answer for this. See how familiar that is to you, being able to work through that. Yes, this is one where there's a lot of acronyms on the A+. Wait till you get to Network Plus. If you think there's a lot of acronyms now, you're absolutely trying to figure this out, being able to know what these happen to be. Users configured voice control. Who has voice control for their home lighting? A lot of people these days. And it does come in handy. You don't have to get up, don't have to touch the lights, don't have to just talk and tell your house what to do. Really, what can go wrong with that, right? What could possibly be the issue with that, other than having people unlock your door and turn your lights on without you wanting to do it? Users configure voice control for home lighting. Lock in your answers. Got a lot of people have locked in their answers already. Let's see what you think the answer is. Let's click how do we do. Well, we got 52%. So we got a majority of you said it's Zigbee. That's what you think the answer is. 27%, 26%, over a quarter of you say 802.11. 15% said Bluetooth. 4% said RFID, and 3% said NFC. All of these are technologies that very commonly work over a wireless connection. So this is one where we really do have to think about the question itself. And the real part of the question was, which of the following protocols connects all of the IoT devices together? And if you're working with anything relating to IoT, which stands for Internet of Things, that's literally what that means, Internet of Things. We spent a long time coming up with what that acronym would be, and that's what we came up with. Thank you, committee of the IoT committee. One of the very common protocols used for all of these IoT devices to chat amongst themselves in your home without any other type of equipment, they just kind of talk to each other, is Zigbee. That's right, that weird thing that I put at the top that you thought maybe I was just throwing out weird names. Zigbee is indeed an open standard. It's the IEEE 802.15.4 personal area network. You don't have to know the IEEE standard for this, but it is a standard. Zigbee is used very commonly to connect all of these different devices together. Doesn't use 802.11 Wi-Fi, doesn't use Bluetooth, doesn't use NFC. Those are types of wireless technologies that are very functional, but they're not really built for low-power devices to be able to mesh themselves together and talk back and forth to each other. And that's exactly what Zigbee does. Your light bulbs and your garage door opener and your home lock and all of your devices all connect to each other and talk back and forth. Amazon Echo, for example, uses Zigbee. So Echo talks to your door and the lights and everything else over this protocol that you had no idea was running on your network, over this wireless connection that's meshed up in your home that you did not set up, you did not configure, you did not give it IP addresses, you didn't assign it. You don't have to have a particular piece of hardware. It just all connected to each other. And that's the beauty of Zigbee and the other IoT type protocols, is they don't need anything else to talk to each other. So very common ones you'll see are Zigbee and Z-Wave. Those are the two biggest protocols vying for your time on the network. In fact, you can pretty much put Zigbee and Z-Wave are fighting with each other right now to figure out who's going to be the winner in this. And maybe there won't be one. Maybe we're all going to be the loser. We're going to find out. These do use a similar set of frequencies. So in the 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz frequency band in the US, it uses what we call the ISM band, which is the industrial, scientific, and medical band, which does not require any special licensing to be able to use, which is perfect to go in your home and be able to connect all these different devices together, be able to have that there. The correct answer indeed was Zigbee. Zigbee was the right answer, 53%. Why was it not 802.11? Isn't that what connects everything in our homes? Well, it certainly connects our computers and our televisions and our gaming devices and other types of components, especially components that are their own computers that have a lot of power. You don't have to worry about power consumption. You don't have to worry so much about them being able to connect to each other point to point. But these are 802.11 is not the protocol that's used by these Internet of Things devices. It requires too much chipsets, too much power. IoT has just a very basic function. It just needs a low power meshed connection to other devices. 802.11 doesn't allow that. 802.11 much more complicated than what would be needed for a Zigbee or Z-Wave type network. We've also got 15% of you say Bluetooth. Bluetooth has a similar scenario where Bluetooth is kind of too involved. You have to pair everything. The security's in there. You have to set it up. You have to have a Bluetooth devices talk to each other. It's not set up easily for mesh communication. Again, not kind of a useful thing to use either for Internet of Things. They need their own platform to be able to use that, their own protocol. 4% said RFID and 3% said NFC. NFC, a type of RFID. NFC is that near field communication. That's the one where you use your watch or your phone to pay for things when you're checking out, that type of communication. Very close to each other, very close proximity. Internet of Things is all over your house. These are not your phone or your door, and these other devices are nowhere near each other. So that is not a situation you run into either where NFC and RFID would work at all. You'd have to have your phone, your door next to your lights, next to your garage door opener. Just put them all right next to each other. See how NFC won't work? That's one that doesn't work at all. So the best option, the only option on this list, which of the following protocols connects all of the IoT devices together? Zigbee is the right answer. If you answered A, Zigbee, as funny as it sounds, that is the right answer. 54% of you got that one absolutely right. A lot of questions we're going through here. Now, if you're someone who is studying for your exam, you know that I always tell you, watch the videos, get a good book, get plenty of hands-on, and then at the end of it, try to go through this and see if you can really answer questions that are asked of you. The problem you may find, there's not a lot of good questions out there to help that give you the same feel and the same structure as the CompTIA exam. For those of you that have taken the CompTIA exam before, you know the questions can have a little interesting twist to them. They have a style, they have a voice, they have a method of how they ask things on the exam. So what I did was I sat down and wrote 3 practice exams that have a similar style to the CompTIA exam. The structure and the layout and the type of questions and the distribution of the questions is identical to the exam objective percentages. There are 3 questions in here, 90 questions in each one of these. They include 5 performance-based questions on each of these, so 15 performance-based questions in this whole book. And I give you, it's kind of different than some of the questions you may have seen before. For example, I've got the book right in front of me. Here's a question. One of the first questions in this book It says, the printer in the accounting department has stopped all printing processes. The print queue shows that there are 7 jobs in the queue that are waiting to be printed. Which of the following would be the best next troubleshooting step? Boy, this is a common question on the exam. The best next thing to do. Would it be to send a test job to the printer and move it to the top of the queue? Would it be to restart the printer spooler? Would it be to install an updated version of the printer driver? Or would it be to delete everything in the queue and resend the print jobs? Now, you can go to a big list of just all the answers, A, B, C, D. You'll list them all out for every question. Or you can click the details. I'm just going to click on the PDF itself. It jumps ahead to the answer page, which is hundreds of pages back. And it gives you the question again. It tells you the answer is B, restart the printer spooler. And then it gives you an explanation of why B is the right answer. And then what I also do is I list out all of the incorrect answers, and I tell you why each incorrect answer was incorrect. And this is the thing that always drove me crazy when I took sample exams. It told me that B was the right answer, but it didn't tell me why I answered one of the other ones and why that was wrong. And so I do this on every single question. At the end of this, I also put, if you want to watch the video that tells you more information about that content of that question, it's right here. You can either click on the link itself to go to the video, or if you have your phone handy, you can do this right now. Since we're on this video, grab your phone, put the camera on. You don't have to take a picture. Just point your camera at the QR code that's on the screen. So if you have the physical book, you can do this as well. And then that will take you to the page on my website to be able to make that happen. So whenever you want to go back, you go use the back option in your browser. So I use on mine, it's an option bracket that takes me back, and then I can go to the next one on my list and then figure out the answer for that one. This is all in my practice exam book, 370 pages, 390 question exams. Everything is in there. I'm very proud of this book, and I spent a lot of time because I wanted to create the question and answer book that I would have wanted if I was taking my exam. You can find out more about this on my website, professormesser.com/core1PE, CORE number 1 PE for practice exam. And you can also find links on my website to find the practice exams as well. Let's do more questions. Let's do some more multiple choice. I've got one here we can go through. The next question is a multiple choice question that asks, a network administrator needs to run a copper 10 gigabit connection between 2 database servers that are installed in the same rack. What is the minimum cable category that could be used for this connection? Would it be category 3, category 5, category 5E, category 6, or category 6A? A lot of different options there. Network administrator needs to run a copper 10 gigabit connection between 2 database servers that are installed in the same rack. What is the minimum cable category that could be used for this connection? Is it category 3, category 5, category 5E, category 6, or category 6A? If you think you know the answer, lock in your answer here at professormesser.com/QA. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. You'll figure out what that answer is and lock it in. Take a guess. If you don't know, folks in the chat room not familiar with the cable categories yet, this is one where you do have to know the categories. There, especially if you're plugging something in. You're in a data center. They say, okay, plug this device in. Here's the specifications. You need to know you're plugging in the right cable. How do you know how to recognize what type of cable it is? How do you know which one to plug in? Those are good questions. Those are questions you come up all the time. That's a very standard thing. And whenever I used to have a job where I would plug things in a data center all the time. And the first thing we would do, I'd bring in equipment from the outside. The customer would have their cables. First thing I do is look at the cable and see, what is this? What type of connection do we have here? Where does this go? Do we have the right type of connection? Always have to make sure before you look at those things to have it here. Let's see. A lot of you are locked in your answer already, not as fast as the others. You're Googling very much. You're way too much. Stop your Googling. No Google. You can't Google on the test, so don't Google here. To have those there and figure out the details. Let's see what the answer is. Cable category is actually a little bit easier than you might think. We'll look at this in just a moment. So we're not quite sure on this one. Our answers, as we look at your answers that have come in, we have 36% of you said category 6, not a majority, but a plurality. We'll go with that as the top on our list anyway. 29% say it's category 5E is what you would use to be able to use that. 17% said category 5 and 15% said category 6A, effectively a tie for third. And then coming in fourth, 3% of you said category 3. Well, the real key with this one is that it's a 10 gigabit connection and it's between two devices that are in the same rack. So that effectively you could touch both of the machines. It's one rack. It's a 19-inch rack. So effectively you could really touch. It's very close to each other is what the point of that question is that they are there and that it's a 10 gigabit connection. So now you have to go through your list of what are the speeds and standards supported by the different categories. And of course, I have a list of these in my video that shows you the cable category. It shows you the maximum supported Ethernet standard for that particular category, and it shows you the minimum supported distance for these. So for instance, we have category 3 and category 5, which are not available anymore. We can't even buy them anymore. We've effectively deprecated those. You don't see them anymore. But category 3 supported 10 megabit per second networks, 10 base T. Category 5 supported gigabit networks, 1000 base T. To have those there. Category 5E is almost identical to category 5. In your mind, you should probably think that category 5 and category 5E are pretty much the same, just minor differences in how those are constructed. Category 5E may just a little bit better than category 5 to get around some corner cases of crosstalk. So effectively, those are the same thing. So in your mind, go ahead and put the standards for category 5 and category 5E together. They both support a maximum Ethernet standard of 1000 base T over 100 meters of distance. This is one where this is the standard. This comes directly from the 802.3 Ethernet standard. So category 5 and 5E, as you can see, do not support 10 gigabit. 10 gigabit, technically, we only start supporting 10 gig when we get to category 6. And even then, we don't support, usually 100 meters is what we've always supported over Ethernet. But notice category 6 can only support 10 gig over 37 to 55 meters in length. So that's where we really get into a challenge to be able to make that happen. So whenever we want to get in and really break down where these speeds are important, we not only need to understand the speed that we need to support, but how the distance we need to support and have this here. And finally, category 6A also supports 10 gig traffic, but it can support it up to a full 100 meters. So really, for your studies, you really only have to study 4 different things. Some people in the chat room mentioning category 5 only supports up to 100 megabits. Not correct, actually. The 802.3 standard clearly states that category 5 is able to support 1000 base T, 1 gigabit type connectivity over 100 meters. That is the standard. I've noticed, by the way, a lot of books are wrong on that particular point. So, but that comes directly from the 802.3 standard from IEEE for those things there. These are the standards supported on the exam. There are other I wouldn't say standards. There are other categories of cable that are not necessarily standards. So this is one where pretty important to have this here. That means if we look at this list and we want the minimum category of cable that runs 10 gigabit, we know 10 gigabits category 6 and category 6A. Our question was asking about connecting two devices that were practically next to each other, which means category 6, which would make 37 to 55 meters, which these two devices are nowhere close to that. They're very close to each other, is the right answer, which means if you answer D, category 6, that is the right answer. 37% of you got that one absolutely right. Folks in the chat room are still complaining about the category 5 and category 5E. Category 5 and category 5E support exactly the same speeds with exactly the same standards. They both support gigabit networks. Sorry that's the case, but it really is. It's very difficult to kind of fight the internet's wrong answers all the time. So whenever you get to that, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. But that's the actual answer. And I have 802.3 standards we can always pull up if you're interested in seeing that. Category 3 and Category 5 are on the exam, even though they're deprecated, because you will still run into them. This is the thing about networks, and you'll learn more about this when you start studying for your Network Plus, is that once a network gets installed, it's in there, baby. You're not getting that thing out of there. That thing is in there for the count. Very difficult to get that thing pulled out after the fact. So it's not uncommon for you to move into a building where somebody else was. There's cable in the wall. You pull it out and go, oh, that's category 5. This must have been in there for 15 years. It's 20 years, which is not unusual. And since it works, you could plug it in, run gigabit over it. Why wouldn't you? It's probably a good idea to have your cable team go in there and verify the cable that is there. They can qualify that indeed there's nothing weird about where it was run. It wasn't run over a fluorescent light that limits how much speed and the noise you're going to get from it. But you're absolutely going to find Cat 3 and Cat 5 out there. You'll always find something. The CompTIA exams are not here to tell you about exclusively all the latest technologies in the world. What they're here to help you with is what you might expect to find when you walk into a data center, when you walk into an organization, and what they actually have running in their systems. Plenty of old tech is in there. And if you run across it, the last thing you want to do is say, category 5, what is this? I've never even heard of this before. And then we all get to laugh at you. Nobody wants that. So that's why we still mention category 3 and category 5. You're still going to run into it. That's why we still talk about Windows 7, because you're going to run into it. I guarantee you will run into it. If we can look at our stats, people hitting my website over the last month that are still running Windows 7. Plenty of people. I get to see those stats. So I know that's a good example. So you have to know, how can you upgrade these people? That's a good example of when you have those and be able to work through them. We've got time for another question. Let's do another one. We've got time for a couple more, I think. Here's a question. Since what? You want more cloud computing? Good. What cloud computing characteristic provides a way to manage granular chargebacks to each cloud user? Which cloud computing characteristic provides a way to manage granular chargebacks to each cloud user? Is it non-metered service? Is it on-demand self-service? Is it resource pooling? Is it rapid elasticity? Or is it a measured service? I got an extra connection in there, an extra line break. Just ignore that. Which cloud computing characteristic provides a way to manage granular chargebacks to each cloud user? Is it a non-metered service, on-demand self-service, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, or measured service? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. From the chat room, real quick. You thought Windows forcibly upgraded everyone on Windows 7 to Windows 10. They certainly did in my house. But in an enterprise where those types of upgrades are blocked at the firewall, they did not. In fact, in most organizations, they block that type of automated updates because it might break things. Because it will break things. So that's why. That's why it's there, to have those things. See if you know what the answer is for this one. Cloud computing, there's tons of different options for cloud computing, different technologies. They list down a few there and have those capabilities that are in here. So we'll talk about this to have that functionality. Oh yeah, even though XP isn't supported, you're still going to find it. Plenty there. I go in an airport, just go in an airport and see what people are running. It's remarkable the types of things people are using. Just look over their shoulder, which they shouldn't allow you to do, but you do anyway. See, what is that person running? Oh, Windows 2000. Okay, got it. You'll find them. Weirdness that's out there. And why are they doing that? Who knows? Again, the chat room is trying to correct me and saying, but CompTIA says this and this in this book. Well, the book is wrong. Book is incorrect. Category 5 supports 1000 base T in the official 802.3 standard, regardless of whatever else is said on any website, what else is said in any book. They are wrong. So go with the standard. When you're ever trying to figure out, but what is the right answer? The right answer is the one that is right. It's the one that's the standard. Let's see how you do with this one. Speaking of questions that are right, what cloud computing characteristic provides a way to manage granular chargebacks to each cloud user? How'd we do? 48% of you said measured service. 47% of you said measured service. 23% said on-demand self-service. 14% said resource pooling. 12% said rapid elasticity, and 3% said non-metered service. So let's think about these cloud computing characteristics and what it might be. The one we're looking for, you kind of get a hint from this from the question, which says we want to manage granular chargebacks. For those of you not familiar with that term, granular chargebacks are very commonly used in cloud computing, especially in cloud computing environments where there are many different clients using this cloud. Think of a cloud provider like Microsoft or Amazon or Rackspace, where you have thousands or hundreds of thousands of users, and they're all using pieces of your cloud. Now, how can you charge them back properly for the piece of the cloud they happen to be using? And in some cases, it's a very specific type of transfer charge. For example, I have a cloud service. If you're on professormesser.com right now, you're on a cloud service. That cloud service is charged to me not only with some flat fees, but I'm also charged by how much traffic is transferred. So the numbers might change. If more people hit my site, I have to pay a little bit more. It's a very granular type of charging because it's charging me for very specific types of data. If nobody hits my site, I don't have to pay any transfer fees. They don't do a flat fee. So it's a very specific type of chargeback they do for me. So every month, I don't know what my bill will be. I'm always wondering what it will finally end up being because it will depend on how much data goes in and out of my website to be able to do that. And that would be a service that is measured. It's a measured service. We track utilization, we track storage, we track data transfer, we track all of these little metrics very, very closely so that we can then create some billing and charge people on their credit card every month for that particular service. That is it seems like it's obvious, doesn't it? But that's an extremely important part that has to be baked in when you design the platform. You can't put everything in place and then say, we should have probably thought about how we're charging for this. No. All of this is predefined. So there's structures and information inside of the cloud that already knows how you're going to go about doing this. So this is one where I think for the purposes of understanding how this works under the surface, we now have to think about those people that are using this technology. They're implementing the cloud and trying to figure out how do we bill for this? And they bill for it because it's a measured service. Not all technologies allow you to measure things that way. Not all technologies allow you to bill back in that way. And that's why a lot of the services you use are flat fee. We just don't have a way to do that. It's a flat fee to be able to make that happen. And that's why in your case, the 49% of you, about half of you said measured service is answer E. That is the right answer. Now, a non-metered service is one that is not measured or metered at all. So they don't track or be able to understand how much of a particular resource you have used. None of you thought that was the right answer anyway. Only 3% said non-metered service. On-demand self-service means that you as the end user at any time can go in and create your own services. You can break down and take apart services. You can disable them and put them back in the pool. You can modify how the cloud is set up. That's all in your hands. You don't have to call anybody to do that. That is all something that you can do whenever you want or on demand, and you're the one doing it, so it's self-service. Now, that's an important part of cloud computing, and I can do this on my service. If I need a new web server, I can log into my cloud-based service right now and say, bring up another server, bring up another load balancer, bring up another database server. Go, I can be the king. Go, people, bring up the services. And it does it because it's an on-demand self-service. Resource pooling means that all of those things that I'm using, I'm building these servers out of nothing. Well, they're not out of nothing. There's a big pool of resources available that has already been put in place. There's tons of storage, there's CPU time, there's network connections. And I just pull from the pool and say, give me a little bit of CPU, give me a little bit of storage, give me a little bit of network. We'll put it all together right out of the pool, and I'll be able to use those resources. That's resource pooling, being able to use that. And rapid elasticity means that we're able to make services very quickly, especially when things get very busy, and perhaps even more importantly, when things slow down, be able to get rid of services all seamlessly. So the end user never knows you're doing this. You're simply building out new services to deal with the big amount of people coming in, and then you can get rid of them when you don't need them so you don't have to pay for them. because obviously they're measuring how much you're spending on this. So that's an important part of what we do. If you answered E, measured service, 50% of you got that one absolutely right. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would be glad to send you an email that states that you watch this and you get 1 hour of a webinar category CEU from CompTIA. The way that you would do this is that you must follow these instructions to the T. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. Click on that Contact Us link. It'll bring you up to a form. Put your name, put your email address. Make sure the email address is correct because I'm sending you back with an email. See how this works? There's a subject line, and on that subject line, if you would put that this is the 220-1001 A+ study group for June 2020. And then in the body of the message on a single line, if you would put the words measured service. So this is one where, and then you can put anything else you'd like in there as well. Feel free. I read every single one of these that comes in. I'm not able to respond back to every single one of them because I get hundreds of these coming in, but I do read through every single one of them. And then I'm able to be able to work through those. Usually takes me about a week. So usually do this on the weekend and I get an email back. If you need your CEUs a little bit quicker, let me know. If you don't know what a CEU is, then you don't need to do this. It's that simple. If you do need a CEU, then you'll know what that CEU is to have those there and being able to work through it. This is one that does come in handy, so make sure you do that. I get these out in less than a week. If you need them faster than that, just tell me. I'm coming up very quickly on a renewal. Please get this to me immediately, and I can always turn around quickly. We'll figure out a way to make that happen for you. We're right at the end of the study group, but I got time for one more question. Let's do one more, shall we? Let's get through one more of these because we just don't have enough printer questions. So let's finish on a high note, shall we? With a printer question that asks, the output from a laser printer shows information at the top of the page is being reprinted lower on the page, and the reprinted information is displayed as much lighter as faded text. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? The output from a laser printer shows information at the top of the page is being reprinted lower on the page, and the reprinted information is displayed as much lighter as faded text. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be a bad fuser, an incorrect printer driver? Is it out of memory? Is it a faulty cleaning process, or is it a scratch drum? So is it a bad fuser, an incorrect printer driver? Is it out of memory? Is it a faulty cleaning process, or is it a scratched drum? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. You know, I don't think printer questions are that bad either. I think a lot of people don't like printer questions, I think, because they don't work with them enough. I think we, of course, don't use printers as much as we used to. We still use them quite a bit. And in our homes, you know, if you haven't worked somewhere that has all of these, we don't usually in our house have a laser printer, a dot matrix printer, a inkjet printer, and a thermal printer. We don't have all of these things at our hands. So it becomes more of a thought process. We don't have a way to touch them, so it becomes a little harder to learn, I think. That's why if you're in a store, check out their thermal printers. If you're in an airport, have a look at the dot matrix printer that they're using behind the counter at check-in, or at your gate rather. If you're in a place with a laser printer, maybe you're at an office supply store, look at the laser printers. Pop open the cover. See if you can recognize what's inside of those. It's not going to hurt anything. So figure out the details of what's inside. Might help you get a little more perspective of what's there to have those there. So let's see how you did with this one. Yes, the question asked, the output from a laser printer shows information at the top of the page is being reprinted lower on the page, and the reprinted information is displayed as much lighter faded text. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be bad fuser, incorrect printer driver, out of memory, a faulty cleaning process, or scratch drum? And 45% of you say it's a bad fuser. Not a majority, but a plurality. We got 26% of you say it's a faulty cleaning process. 13% of you say it's an incorrect printer driver. 11% say a scratch drum, and 5% said out of memory. We're all over the place. We are all over the place with this one. We aren't quite sure what it is. Well, the output we got looks a little like this. So there is my graphical representation of this particular problem in physical form. So you're printing something out. There's the test page information at the top of the page. And then lower on the page, it seems to be reprinting everything, but kind of faded in the reprinted piece of this. Kind of a ghost image of what's there. And if you're getting this image, this means that the printer rotated all the way through to print the first part, but it did not clean itself off properly to clearly print the other part of the page, because that drum rolls around a number of times just to print a single page. So anytime you see this type of rotational issue where it doesn't seem like it's cleaning off properly, it's with the cleaning process. That is the problem we are running into, is the cleaning of this. Here's a better picture of what this might look like if you have it on your printer. You don't run into this very often. The cleaning process usually works just fine, but when it goes bad, it really does go bad. It looks just like this. Not a situation you'd like to be in. That cleaning phase, we need to get that fixed. Probably time for the standard maintenance to happen for this computer, for this laser printer rather. Have all of this work. It's about the cleaning. And 26% of you said a faulty cleaning process, but that is the right answer. If you answer D, faulty cleaning process, that is the one you want to go with. 46% of you said a bad fuser. And a bad fuser means that is one of the last things that happens is a lot of heat and pressure is used to effectively melt the toner and permanently affix it to the page. If the fuser is not working properly, the paper will come out looking exactly like it should, but as soon as you touch it, it smears and goes everywhere, and it's a mess because it was never properly fused to the page. But it would not duplicate content if it was a bad fuser. We would just have a messy looking page by touching it after it came out. In fact, it looks great when it comes out, but as soon as you pick it up and touch it, it's just everywhere. It's a mess. A bad fuser, it's not hot. You expect the pages out of a laser printer to be hot. If the pages are coming out cold, your fuser's broken. That's what that is. 12% said an incorrect printer driver. An incorrect printer driver might give you a garbled output. It might limit the options available for an output, but it wouldn't cause the page itself to ghost that way or duplicate the content that way on the page. That is not indicative of an incorrect printer driver, certainly not the most likely reason for this issue. 11% said a scratch drum. A scratch drum would effectively show a line that goes all the way down the page, or multiple lines all the way down the page. That's not what we were seeing. We were seeing a ghosting of the page. In fact, there's no single line down the page at all that shows us this. So I would not think that it was anything dealing with a scratched laser printer drum. And then lastly, out of memory would only print part of the content. It effectively would be cut off at the top of the page. You would see maybe all the way to here, and then it would just stop. The rest of the page would be white. That would be an out of memory, or indicative of an out of memory situation. The only one here that really fits, the only one that would be the most likely reason for this issue, would indeed be a scratched, not a scratch drum. It would be D, the faulty cleaning process. Where was I going with that? We don't know. It's the faulty cleaning process that would cause that ghosting on the page. You need to know about printers. They're a big part of the exam. You'll find this and all the information you need in an enormous checklist. It is the first thing you should download and the last thing you should reference before you take your exam. It's the exam objectives. You can find these on the CompTIA website, or you can go right to the set of the CompTIA website. I have a link that takes you there at professormesser.com/objectives. It's a good place to go for that. We do one of these study groups every month. We do another one for the 1002 on Thursday, so come back in a couple of days. And then in July, I did pick out some dates, July 7th and 9th for my Core 1 and Core 2. July the 15th is the date for the Network Plus, July 22nd for Security Plus. I'd love to have you here for those as well. Feel free to come back. If this is after July, you're watching this video on replay and wondering when is the next live event, you can always find out by going to professormesser.com/calendar. We'll tell you exactly when the next live event is going to be. We'd love to have you here for that. Stick around. Even though we finished kind of the QA part of this where I ask you questions, now it's your chance to ask me questions. I'll open up the phone lines and take questions from the chat room in the second part of the after show. So don't forget about my practice exams and my success bundle. You can go to professormesser.com/1001success to find out about more of those, help support what we're doing here. Don't forget about the daily pop quiz questions on YouTube and Instagram, or follow me on Twitter. Go to ProfessorMesser.com, ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter, ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube, ProfessorMesser.com/Instagram. Just put ProfessorMesser.com/ the thing you'd like to find me on, and you'll probably find me there if indeed I am there. Sometimes when I'm not there, sometimes I put in a holding pattern. It's just something to have that there. And don't forget about supporting us on Amazon. If you're buying things from Amazon these days, a great way to support the site is to visit our site first by going to ProfessorMesser.com/Amazon. And that's a great way without you having to spend any money. Thanks for being here in this first hour. Thanks for arguing with me about the size of icons and whether Cat 5 is worth anything. Wait till we start talking about layer 3 switches. Boy, we could just spend a lot of time. Thanks for joining us. Stick around for the after show. We'll ask and answer even more questions. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. All right. Let's see if we can get the phone lines up and running. Here we are. There's this. Yes, we should argue about all of these. Books are not always right. Sometimes books are wrong. And I sometimes think that the books are copying from each other, and then one person gets it wrong, and then they all copy from each other the wrong thing. I think that's what's happening. And then I go back and look and think, wait, I've been told this whole time it's one thing. And then I look into it because I try to double and triple check some of these things. And I find that, no, it's not. That's not right at all. Let me get my phone lines up and running so that you can use the same phone lines. Let me call in to my own show and see if I can straighten out what happens to be here. Let me type a few things in on my side.
That was an invalid show.
Was it? I typed something wrong.
Re-enter your show number.
I'll re-enter my show number. It's the mouse. It double-clicked.
Did not receive a response.
I know. Goodbye. Good day to you, sir. Oh, my mouse isn't working right. See how this works? It all goes downhill from here, people. Okay. Bop. That worked.
Enter your sixth.
Okay. I'm going to type very carefully. Oh, this is going to be a tough week oh, no, it didn't work right.
You are now in the host room.
Oh, it worked. It did. It took the last one, thankfully. Okay. We're going to have to swap that mouse out pretty quickly, won't we? And get those things going. If you would like to call in, I will be taking questions from the chat room. And so feel free to ask questions in there. And I'll answer questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about technology or careers. It could be about what you're playing on Xbox. I don't really care. Well, I'll answer almost anything in the chat room anyway. You can also call in. If you're in the continental U.S., you can call in on our toll-free line, 855-785-7545. You can also call in anywhere in the U.S. It's the U.S. only. It's the continental U.S. only, 855-785-7545. But you can also call from outside of the continental U.S. if you use Skype, because it doesn't cost anything on Skype to do this. I pick up the tab because it's a toll-free number. On Skype, you'd use the same phone number, but put a +1 at the beginning, +1, 855-785-7545, and you'll be able to get that working as well. So feel free to call in. We've already got full phone lines. So if you call in, you get a busy signal, I'm so sorry. We will get to you and get these phone lines cleaned up in just a bit to have that there. So feel free to put questions in the chat room as well. I'll be glad to do that. And perhaps maybe questions that are a little bit different than why do birds have wings and which would win, ninjas or pirates? Well, probably going to miss those particular questions to have those there. Here's a practical question. Let's get more serious. Your question. So in the chat room, Professor Messer, I got an IT job and then got laid off / furloughed. What's the best way to proceed? This is probably one of the biggest challenges right now because the job market, not so good right now. My daughter just graduated with her IT degree. Where's she going to work? Nobody's hiring. Nobody's getting anything done. The challenge we have right now is ramping everything back up. Now, fortunately, it looks like we'll be able to ramp things up very quickly, and things will start happening much faster now that we're sort of getting out of the pandemic mode we kind of realize the limitations and the parts of the virus that we need to look for. We understand people that might be at a higher risk than others. We're learning so much more about it. And so now we're coming out of our caves and the light is out here and companies are realizing we can start working again. That's what we have to wait for. We have to wait for companies to ramp back up again. Now, I think that ramping is going to be pretty quick. People now want to get back to work. And when people get back to work, they need to drive their car and they need gasoline and they need to change the tires and they need to, we're getting in the summer. We need to travel. We had a vacation planned. We want to be able to take the family outside of the house finally and do something. Those things are going to happen pretty quick. We're all going to want to make that happen. So what we're doing right now is what everybody's doing. We're sort of waiting and seeing what's going to happen. Now, people in the chat room saying, well, it's just not going to be the same. IT will never be the same. I don't know that that's the case either. The pandemic and what we had to go through is a relatively temporary bump in the road. What it did help us understand was that there are different ways to do the things that we used to do that up until that point, nobody even thought about doing. A good example is working remotely. There are a lot of companies that said, we will never let our people work remotely. And then the next day said, wow, everybody's working remotely now. So it's very interesting how that changed that. But will it stay that way? Or will companies want you to come back into the office? That is one that we'll just have to wait and see. And it's an interesting problem to have to kind of break down and see how it works. I would like to go back to an actual trade show and talk to people. I would like to go back to the movies and see a movie in a movie theater. Other people do as well. So we will eventually get to the point where we're doing those things now, and we'll be able to figure out those. And we'll talk about testing from home in just a moment. Testing from home for CompTIA. We got some good parts of that and some bad parts of that. So we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. First, though, let's go to the phone lines and we'll talk to the unavailable number. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the UK.
Well, thanks for calling from the UK. What's your question?
Two questions. I've got the two of the Nano ones PDFs from you, but obviously now things have changed. Do I need to buy the whole thing again, or what's the process? Is there any way of me returning it or something? What do I need to do in order for me to get the whole new 1001, 1002 PDFs?
Whenever this is kind of a challenge, whenever somebody is going from one version to another, CompTIA makes extensive changes to the exam. I build an entire new training course for every exam from the ground up. It's kind of easier to do it that way, but there's a lot of new content, and I'm effectively writing a new one of those before. But there are people like you that you kind of invested in the old version. It would be nice to at least recoup some of that investment to be able to upgrade to the new version. So I do that. I always put together an upgrade path for people that effectively is a 50% discount, 50. It's a pretty significant discount. Most people can see that upgrade from their member login. So if you go to professormesser.com/members, you log into your account, or you click the member link right at the top of the website and you log in, you'll see an upgrade link next to your existing product, and that upgrade link pricing is already built in with a 50% discount. If that upgrade link is not there, just click the contact us link or open a ticket from inside your member login. Send me a note, say, hey, I'd love to upgrade to the new version. Can you send me a coupon for 50% off? And I'll absolutely do that. I try to make that as easy as possible because there's some people that do need to, life happens. You're not able to get through the old one. And I don't want to charge you again for the entire amount for the new one. I want to give you a little bit of a price break on it, and that's the way you do it.
Okay, that's brilliant. I'll do that. The second thing is I'm actually studying PowerShell at the moment on one of the courses on the website, and I'm having a lot of trouble trying to do the tutorials because the PowerShell versions I'm running, there's two different ones, which is a 64-bit and 32-bit.
Right.
But the 32-bit things seem to run a bit more smoother than it does on the 64-bit. But then when, for example, if I want to change the directory, for example, there's a command which is cd tilde / desktop. That doesn't work. It doesn't give me, it gives me an error on the PowerShell itself.
Right.
I'm just would you know why this is?
PowerShell is an incredibly powerful front end for Windows. It gives especially administrators the capability to perform practically any function that they might need, especially when you consider that a lot of the Windows internals are not available from the traditional command line that you would get. So if you go to a command prompt in Windows, it's very archaic and difficult to, for instance, to manage services and users and Active Directory and even extend the capabilities of that. It's not very functional, but because it was never built for that. PowerShell, though, was built for the admin. It is exactly like the name implies, a shell meant for the power user, and it is not the same thing as a command prompt. A lot of the things that you're used to doing a command prompt don't work the same way in PowerShell. PowerShell has its own way of doing things, its own syntax, has its own method of adding in scripts and managing those scripts. So you can't really compare it to the same commands that you would use at a command prompt. Now, fortunately for the CompTIA exams, you don't have to know how to use the nuances or understand the syntax of the command prompts and PowerShell and how they're different. You just have to know kind of what PowerShell is used for and maybe have a basic overview of its functionality. So I wouldn't worry too much about what syntax should I be using to perform a particular function in PowerShell. Instead, I would focus on why people use PowerShell and what it's good for and where its benefits are, and maybe how it compares to something like a DOS command prompt, or perhaps how it might even compare to a Linux shell, and be able to understand those differerences.
Because I've got these video tutorials that I'm using, and it's just those specific syntax that person is using on their PowerShell doesn't work on the PowerShell that I have. So it's I don't know what to do, because I'm using the 32-bit, and then there's an 86 version,
right,
which I'm running as an administrator. But then it's just I can't use the same syntax that they're using
right
from their PowerShell to mine.
Yep,
it doesn't throw them an error. It throws me an error.
Welcome to the world of Windows administration and different versions of PowerShell. PowerShell is really grown up through the years. It has changed quite a bit. What you can do in one version and one type of PowerShell is different than what you do in another version and different type of PowerShell. They are versioned. That is one of those situations where you kind of have to find exactly the format that they're using in the video and try to match it exactly on your side, which you may not be able to do that. That's just one of the odd little nuances of PowerShell and having to make sure you have the right versions in place. Unfortunately, there's no way to get around that.
Okay, the last question was, I don't know if you remember, it's like a few years back, I had, I think you called in to say that there was I was having a RAM issue. I had inserted some DDR2 chips into my PC to upgrade. These were actually new RAM chips that I had bought. And the old ones would work, but then when I put some new ones in, they would work and some wouldn't. I don't know if you would know maybe why this was. They had come straight from the packet and they didn't hit any damage, flaw or anything. So I just don't know why that would be the case. And the Windows 7 OS.
Well, it's one of those cases where also you'd have to kind of have it in front of you. You can run it a different test, plug it in. It may be in the wrong places in the motherboard. It could be that the memory, even though it's brand new memory, it could still be faulty or could have a incompatibility with your particular motherboard. So many different things could be the issue associated with that one, but those are probably some of the most common ones you'd run into. It's interesting how many times I will see people talk about memory problems on places like Reddit in their troubleshooting subreddits. And so often they just have it in the wrong slot because there's so many different ways to plug memory in on so many different motherboards. So we never know, but that's certainly a very common troubleshooting problem. And the first place you would do is confirm you have the right memory, confirm that it's plugged into the right interfaces. And if you have a way to swap it out with known good memory, you'd have a way to also check it that way and ultimately probably do some memory diagnostics on it.
The last question, sorry, what's core 1, what's core 2? You mentioned that for your A+. What is that?
That's the term that CompTIA is now using to define the two exams for the A+. The 220-1001 exam, CompTIA also calls the Core 1 exam. The 220-1002 is what CompTIA now calls also the Core 2 exam. I don't know why they decided to add those names. They don't really make sense to me. But they sort of added them as a moniker to the exams this run through when they introduced the 1000 series. So I'm going with it. They're calling it the Core 1 and Core 2 exam. I'm also calling it the Core 1 and Core 2 exam, for better or worse.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate the call.
Bye.
Thanks. And good questions, too. So thanks for doing that. Frees up a phone slot, so feel free to call in at 855-785-7545. Already filled it. So quick to have that there. So a question in the chat room real quick. Is it better to study a cybersecurity degree program or get certifications on security? Which one will be more valuable? Well, I guess it depends on which one the people hiring you would like to see. They don't replace each other. And in fact, I often tell people a formal degree or formal education doesn't replace an industry certification, and industry certification doesn't replace a formal degree. Neither of those replace experience, and experience doesn't replace either of those. But someone who's hiring you has now to make a decision on, do they hire you based on your credentials, and do we want somebody who is has a formal degree? Do we want somebody who has experience? Do we want somebody who has industry certification? Or what flavor, what combination of those things do we want? So that's the important part, is you understanding what the employers are looking for. Then you'll know how to answer your question. I have no idea how to answer your question because I'm not the one hiring you. So you have to figure out what people are looking for and then work towards those goals. And it's different depending on where you live. If you live in Washington, D.C., employers are going to be looking for different things than if you live in Dallas, Texas, or Los Angeles. So you have to figure out where you are in the world and then figure out, I'm in Toronto, Canada. What do employers want in Toronto, Canada? That's kind of where you go with that. So that's my recommendation. The answer is I don't have an answer for you. What a horrible, horrible call-in show this has turned out to be, isn't it? But that's the only way you can do it, is you have to know what people are looking for. You can't reverse it. You can't just kind of collect a bunch of things and then present it to an employer and go, look at the things I've collected. Because the employer go, we don't want any of those things. We want these things. So it helps if you start there. Start at the employer and work your way out. And maybe go to your favorite job posting site. Kind of look at every employer in your area and overall make a spreadsheet. What are they looking for? How much experience do they want? How much formal education do they want? What industry certifications are they looking for? Do you see any trends? Are there some things that are the same between them? Are they all very different? And it may be worth sending a note to them saying, hey, I noticed you're looking for this type of thing for this position. What if you had these types of characteristics? Would that be something you'd be looking for? So it'd be good to have that there as well. Let's go back to the phones. Thanks for holding for so long. 313. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jay. I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan.
Hey, Jay from Detroit. Thanks for calling.
Hey, yes, Professor. I just wanted to say, I'm taking the 220-1001 on Monday, and I just hope that you wish me luck. That's all.
I'm sending you all the good vibes I possibly can. Are you taking this online, or did you happen to find a testing center that was open?
I found the testing center that was open.
Oh, even better. This is probably, in my mind, it's the best possible scenario because I just don't want to have to deal with taking the test at home if I don't have to. Yeah. Good for you. So first, I think that's a huge advantage for you because now it's kind of, you don't have to worry about the testing part. That's now that whole pain of things is out of your mind. The thing I would tell you, Monday is going to roll around pretty quick here. So the thing I would highly recommend, and this kind of fits for anybody who's coming up in the last week before they take their test, now's the time to pull out your exam objectives. Now's the time to use those exam objectives as a checklist. So you should be able to go through every topic on the exam objectives and either stare at yourself in a mirror and explain to yourself what that exam objective means, or if you have a significant other who tolerates you enough to do this, explain it to them. And have something so that you can go through each one of these. But if you think you aren't quite solid enough on it, That's the one you circle, and you cram a little more on that particular topic. We don't know what the layout's going to be for your exam. Everybody's exam's a little different. It's a big pool of questions. Nobody gets the same set of questions on their exam, but you probably, once you go through all of those, may be able to look at the areas where you have the most circles and say, oh, I probably should spend more time on printers, or I should spend more time on networking, or I should spend more time on cloud. So you'll be able to figure out where you want to spend the most amount of time. You've pretty much got it at this point. You've watched the videos, you've read the books, you've done some hands-on, you've done some Q&A. Now it's the part of really getting down the things you've missed. And I think that's a very good way to spend that last week of time before you walk into the exam.
Okay. Well, thank you, Professor. Appreciate it.
Best of luck, Jay.
Thank you.
What a good feeling. So now we get to take that exam. Now we're walking in. Now, the reason I mentioned for Jay that it's good that there is a testing center open is because some of the reports that we're getting on online training, some of them are very, very good. The people have had an exceptional experience with online training. They showed up, they prepared their room the way they should. They did all of their testing of the service a day before. They prepared their testing area. When they showed up to take their exam, the proctor was online at the exact time they were ready. They went through the entire exam and had no problems with the software whatsoever. And at the end of the exam, they got a successful outcome. Other reports from this are that they tried to get everything what they thought was ready in the room. They showed up for the exam. The proctor never showed up. They waited an hour. The proctor never showed up, just said waiting. Nobody ever showed up. They called in. Nobody could answer why there wasn't a proctor. They ended up having to reschedule, or they waited a long time for the proctor. They got into the testing and the testing application broke. It failed. It busted. And they had to restart. They had to reboot their computer, or the service wouldn't start. They ran into tons of problems. And there are people running into these problems multiple times. It doesn't work the first time. They reschedule, and then it breaks again on the second time through. So the stories that we're getting about testing are just they're varied. They're wildly varied. It is not a perfect experience for everybody, but I think if you spend some time testing the application, you have a very generic Windows configuration or Mac configuration, and you've done the testing with the app, because they do ask you to test it before you register for your exam, and you've set up the room and done your research in a way the room is set up and ready to go, then maybe it's not going to be so bad. But as I mentioned to Jay, if there's a testing center open, just go there and take your test. Then you don't have to worry about any of those things. You just show up. You don't have to wait for a proctor. You're at a testing center. You don't have to load the software on your computer and make it work. You're at a testing center. You don't have to unplug a secondary monitor and put things over books and clear your desk. You're at a testing center. So that's why I mentioned this, is that's where, when you start looking through these things and trying to figure out the details, that might help you a bit. It certainly, I think, streamlines things a little bit to have those things there. So I think that's a real advantage. If you ever start getting into a need where, should I take it online or should I take it at a testing center? Sometimes you don't have the choice of a testing center, and then you'll have to take it online. But you've got some options. And if you have those options, find the one that works for you. Online at home may work better for you. It's just up to you. And having that. Yes, when you're online at home, there's a camera on you for the entire test. They are recording you for the entire test. You don't see the proctor. They will chat with you, but you don't see them. They just see you. So this is one of those situations. Is that creepy? Yeah, that's creepy, but that's what you got to do to get through the exam. Let's go back to the phone lines. 301 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Dave Hines from Alexandria.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Well, I had taken the A+ before in the 900 series and passed it, and I didn't study and get the CEUs and didn't get to renew. But I noticed on the exam that there are a lot of questions that are scenario based or performance type questions, and I was wondering, how does the Messer material handle that?
Well, what do you mean by handle it? Because obviously the performance-based questions are There are a good chunk of questions at the beginning of the exam. I usually tell people it's a handful of questions. It's about 5 questions, could be fewer, could be more, but it's about 5 questions at the beginning of the exam. I think what a lot of people think is they hear performance-based questions and they automatically think that they are simulation questions, that they will be presented with a command prompt or they will be presented with a Windows front end and be asked to perform a task. And you might be presented with a command prompt and you might be presented with a Windows front end and asked to be perform a task. But it could be other questions too. It could be a drag and drop question. It could be a matching question. It could be a fill in the blank question. All of those are performance-based questions. And I think on most people's exams, it's a combination of those they end up getting. I've had people come out of the exam saying, boy, those performance-based questions were not at all what I was expecting. Some of them were just matching. Go, yes, that's a performance-based question. That's what that is. They were expecting a command prompt and having to type things on every single one of them, and that's simply not the case. So in my practice exams book, for example, I do have some questions that put you at a command prompt and say, what do you type in to perform this scenario? I do have other questions that are drag and drop. I have other questions that are matching. I have others that have you put things in order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. So I try to mix them up in the same type of format that you might expect on the exam because I want to give you the same feeling of styles of questions that you might get on the exam as well.
And I have another question.
Sure.
Do you know of where you can get like discount vouchers, or can I get it through Messer.com?
I don't personally have discounted vouchers. I am not a CompTIA partner, which is the type of people that have these vouchers for sale. I intentionally am not a CompTIA partner so that I can tell you about things that aren't good with the testing experience, for example, and not have to worry about it. I prefer being independent. However, there are some very good discounts available out there if you are a student I think it's North America, maybe the United States, but certainly you can look at this. Look for the CompTIA Academic Marketplace. That's what you want to look for if you are a student. And if you are a student and they have you prove that you're taking classes, you send them documentation that you are a student and that you're enrolled in classes, and they will give you, it's practically a 50% discount, 50%, half off for those. Students in the UK, I don't think it applies to students in the UK. I think it is just North America. It may just be the United States now that I'm thinking about it. The other, if you're not a student, the other type of discounts that you might see on other websites are 10% off. Sometimes you might see a 20% off, but most of the time it's 10%. And then there are some cases on certain resellers that are CompTIA partners, certain voucher resellers, where they have a voucher that's for a limited time. So it might be you have to take the test in the next 14 days. But the price on it is a lot lower than you would normally have to spend. Those aren't very common, but you might run into one of those deals here and there. I would highly recommend staying away from eBay, staying away from people online that are selling one-offs. There's just been so many cases on even the CompTIA Reddit where people have been scammed by people who are trying to unload fake vouchers or no vouchers for that. Make sure you're buying your vouchers from a trusted source that is a known CompTIA partner, and you'll be just fine.
Okay, you mentioned that the CompTIA Academic is the place to go. Could you tell me again what's the complete name for that so I can look it up?
It is the CompTIA Academic Marketplace. That's what they're looking for. In the chat room, some people are saying, all you need is an EDU email. Not correct. That used to be the case, but now they want verification that you are a student and that you're in classes. They don't really even care about the email anymore. They're really looking to see if you are a student to be able to get those.
Thanks a lot, Professor Messer. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the call, Dave. Take care. For the folks in the chat room saying, hey, can you see the replay, the chat replay, if you watch the YouTube afterwards? Yes, you can. As long as I don't edit the video, you're able to watch the chat go by. The live chat will be available on YouTube. You have to go to YouTube to watch it, but the live chat is there, and you can follow it on the replay. So the chat is replayed along with the video, which I think is pretty cool, which is why we're doing the YouTube chat now these days, to be able to do that. and have that happen. Back to the phone lines. Thanks for holding for so long. The 281 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, my name is G. I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
From Houston. What can we do for you?
Yeah, no, just first of all, great job that you're doing here with the 1001 and 1002 courses. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
I said, sure. You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and what I was asked, the question that I have is about most likely is simulations on 1001 certifications, right? How would you recommend to practice those? I know that you mentioned a lot of performance, like click and drag. Yeah, those are there, but in the beginning of the quizzes, it's like around 3 or 4 simulations that you need to put together. For example, one of the simulations came across one day. It was that about the 2.4 to 5 gigahertz on dual band.
Well, one of the things I think you'll find is that the drag and drop questions, the multiple choice or the non-multiple choice questions are the performance-based questions. So at the beginning of your exam, you might get all matching questions. You may get no questions putting you at a command prompt and asking you to perform a particular function. The performance-based questions are simply questions that are not multiple choice. And there are some drag and drop questions. So in fact, one of the questions that's in my exam book is configuring an access point. And you have to choose the right pull-down menu on the access point to configure it with a specific configuration that I give you. So I tell you, configure the access point this way, go. And then you have to drag and drop the right things into place to be able to make that happen. Those are common type questions. You can even think about some that you might run into. So for the 1001 exam, there are certainly questions on there. There's command prompt questions you would need to know. Not a lot of command prompts on the 1001, but some of the ones you might need to know are from the recovery console, for example. There's just not a lot on there to be able to work through on the exam. So I think that's one where once you get into the exam, you'll notice that's the way they work, and the way they work is definitely a mixture of different types. And you just, one thing you can do is go back to my study groups, because my study groups have a performance-based question, a new one every month. And of course, I have performance-based questions in my practice exams book.
Actually, I bought one of your products on your page, the questions and answers book.
Great.
Kind of real work. So that's what I was looking on that and see that you have a lot of click and drop, which is helpful a lot.
Yep.
It help a lot.
Yep.
So, and also the explanation too underneath after the question. So
I've specifically
right, so
written those with a similar style and distribution to what you might actually find on the exam. So they're not all sitting in a command prompt, thankfully.
Yeah. All right. But yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the call. Also from the chat room, will a printout of your exam report be available if you take it at home? In fact, a printout will not be available, but it used to be when you finish taking a CompTIA exam that a printout would be available right afterwards. It would literally print a piece of paper. They would stamp it at the testing center and send you on your way with either the documentation that you passed or the documentation that you failed. And on both of those, it tells you the areas where you got questions wrong. CompTIA has moved to a completely online version of the same information. So as soon as your test is over, or a few minutes after, you can log into your Pearson VUE account and be able to see the report now. Didn't used to be able to do that. But now all of those post-exam reports are now all available for you to view online, thankfully. So you don't have to worry about printer problems, or there's nobody there to hand you the output when you're done with the exam. Now you can simply just log in and grab that report, and it will be available to you, which is very nice. Back to the phones, 812 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from? Back to the phones, 812. Well, there we go. See? Let's see if 812 picks up the phone.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for calling. Listen in on the stream and not on the phone and not the stream. What's your name?
Hello?
And which question? Maybe we gave it a shot though, didn't we? Maybe we can try that one again. Let's go back to the phone lines. Listen into the phone and not the stream. Let's talk to 929. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from? Caller. Caller, are you muted, caller? No, you're not. You dropped the phone right out. Oh, well, it's worth a shot. Let's try another one. with 912. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Ross from Georgia.
Hey, Ross from Georgia. What can we do for you, sir?
I actually just got my 4-year in IT, and
Nice.
and I'm starting out in the field, trying to get a feel for everything. And I wanted to ask you, is there anything, like when you were in my position, if you're starting out, something you would want to tell yourself right now? Anything that's not obvious or obviously Googled, any kind of information you could help with someone that's starting out?
This is probably the one of the few times I've been asked a question I have not been asked before. Let's think about this. Now, when I started out, there was effectively no internet. So already you can tell I was at an enormous disadvantage. I got a degree, a 4-year degree starting out in business management. It was not normal for people to have computers in their homes. Laptops were not a thing. They didn't exist. Obviously, mobile phones did not exist when I got my first job. They were at the very beginnings of where you could actually buy a clunky mobile phone to go in your car, but it was not very portable to be able to use. That was actually a size of a phone. It was a box the size of a phone, an old Panasonic that I used to ride around with when I did field service, and incredibly expensive to be able to do that. But if I had to think back, what are the things that were my biggest challenges was really about keeping up and understanding what was going on. When you're just starting out, you know nothing about these technologies. Everything is new to you. Everything is a brand new experience. So I was learning about, in fact, I was learning about the very first RAID arrays that Compaq was putting into their servers and how those operated. I was learning about network operating systems, which at the time, Microsoft, Windows NT didn't even exist. Microsoft LAN Manager was a thing, but Novell had the market for that particular piece. But one of the things that I thought was incredibly important, and probably the thing that allowed me to kind of move up and move up and move up, is I just kept trying to learn those things. There's such an advantage when you're first starting out. Since everything is new, there's so many opportunities to learn. You get to learn about operating systems. Well, now you got tons of operating systems to choose from: Windows, Linux, Mac OS. There's tons of hardware, laptops, mobile devices, desktop computers. There's network operating systems like Windows Server and even Linux in that perspective, and being able to use it. There's now cloud-based technologies and trying to understand the nuances of container software and being able to have these micro instances, being able to run and manage those. There's API calls and being able to manage things remotely and orchestrate and automate those particular functions. Imagine walking into IT today and seeing that amazing amount of content and things to learn about. You've just got plenty of places to go. I think if I had to give you advice, it would be, once you get into this enormous pool of new content, is to find the thing that really interests you. Now, when I first started out, it was hardware. I really got into hardware and computers and understanding laptops and desktops and working with those. And that's where I started getting into operating systems and learning more about the operating systems that were running on the hardware. And then that interested me in networking that connected all of these devices together. So they were stepping stones. And each one of those stepping stones were things that I was very interested in doing. So that's in my opinion, that's one of the great things about IT, is that there's always somewhere to go. There's always something to learn. Nobody's going to know everything about everything. So you're going to have to find the niche that fits. And if you can find that niche that you really, really love, and you get into that niche and you just learn everything there is to know about that niche, you will suddenly find yourself as a very popular person for the people using that particular technology. And it's not as hard as you might think, because once you spend the time understanding it, learning it, becoming an expert in it, you're effectively now the person who has the knowledge in that technology. You sort of make that yourself. Nobody walks into the room and says, you've spent a lot of time on Windows. I now pronounce you the expert of Windows Exchange 365. No, it just sort of happens over time, and people now start coming to you as the expert on that thing. It's really up to you to make yourself that expert. Nobody's going to do that for you. And so that's why I often say to people, find the thing you really are interested in, because you're going to be spending a lot of time on it.
Awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate the call, Ross. That's one that might make sense. From the chat room, if you're buffering a bit, your connection is being made to YouTube. Your connection's not being made to me. So if you are buffering a bit, that's a problem between you and YouTube. You may want to hit the cog wheel, go down to a lower resolution where it doesn't require quite as much bandwidth, and that might help you a little bit for what you are doing. Let's question in the chat room. I've gone through this one before, and we'll come back to the calls in just a moment. Thanks for holding, callers. Question in the chat room: is knowing how to code going to be a must-have skill regardless of the sector you work in the near future? I guess it depends on what you mean by knowing how to code. Whenever I hear the term how to code, I think of an application developer. I think of somebody who's writing applications in a browser, somebody who's writing applications for Windows, for Mac OS, for Linux, somebody who's writing mobile applications for iOS or for Android, somebody who's an application developer. And the skills and the things you have to know to become an application developer are skills that in a lifetime of work, you will never be able to master. There is just too many things that you have to know just to make apps. So when somebody says learning how to code, I separate those into two categories. I separate those into the computer science side of things, where you are someone who writes apps. You build apps. You're an application developer. You're writing the apps for Windows. You're writing the apps for your phone. You're writing the apps. There's a whole nother group of people on the other side, on the IT side, that are not application developers. You don't have to know C++. You'll never have to know Java. You don't have to learn those programming languages. But what you do need to know, and this is something I've done from the very beginnings of my career, you have to know how to automate. In the terms of the cloud, you have to know how to orchestrate, because the cloud is really about orchestration. It's not just about one particular piece, instrument in that entire group. It's about managing all of the instruments. But it's automation, and it's usually shell scripts, PowerShell scripts, Linux shell scripts, Python. That's the type of thing you need to know. So if you're somebody who's trying to get into networking, you're trying to get into IT, knowing how to do automation, how to run a batch file, how do you make a Linux machine perform a function every day? So on my web server, for example, I have a bunch of log files. Once a week, it takes all of my log files, it compresses them, and stores them in a different part of my server and kind of cleans out the existing log file and starts it from scratch. And if I want to go back, and it also checks to see if I've had these log files sitting past a certain amount of time, let's say a month. If the log file is over a month old, it deletes it. So I have this automated process that runs every week that does that. How do you do that? That's a very important skill to have, is configuring that, setting it up on the server, writing the script so it performs the way you want, and then putting that in so that it runs automatically. And now I never have to worry about that. Now I never touch it. It's completely automated. I never worry about where my log files are. I never worry about my log files taking up too much room. I never worry that my log files are too big to have to search through, because they're cleaned up and consolidated every week. That's the code, if you will, that you need to know. I don't consider that programming. I don't consider that knowing code. I consider that scripting. I consider that automation. And it's an incredibly valuable skill in IT to know. So if you wanted to pick any one of those to work on, probably the one that has the most amount of juice right now is Python. Python is incredibly useful programming language, automation language. It's an incredibly useful scripting language that gives you a lot of power, allows you to interoperate with a lot of different systems. You can use the functionality of Python to use API calls to access your routers and your switches and your firewalls, bring all that data back, create information and reports. That's where you should focus in IT. The better you are with automation, the better you're going to be able to manage these day-to-day problems that are thrown at you. And you're able to take things that normally would take you by hand a lot of time to do. You already know in Python, oh, I can do that. We'll just bring it into Python. We'll parse it out. We'll grab that piece of it. We'll stick it in a file and we're done. Easy enough. On my computer, I'm running Mac OS. I have have a macro language in my operating system where I can build up macros that interact with different applications. And that's what I use to create the CEU emails to you. So you send me an email, it's already in a structured format because I have you put it into a form. I have that process parse it out, grab your name, grab your email address, cross-reference with the special code word, make sure it's legit, build out a new email, digitally sign it, and then wait for me to make sure it's okay, and then I click yes, go send that to you. So what used to take me a few minutes for each email that came through literally takes me 3 seconds. That's a huge difference in my time. Used to be I didn't have to worry about it because I didn't have that many people watching. Now there's hundreds of emails I have to process every week. So now it saves me an enormous amount of time. And I can just sit there, click, yep, that's good, click, click, click. I could really automate the entire thing if I wanted to, but I like to make sure everything's right, that you've got the structure in there. I like to read the emails you send to me. So there is a manual part of it that I built in because I want to have that manual view of it. But learn how to do batch scripts, batch files in Windows. Learn how to do shell scripts in Linux. Learn how to use Python. There's your 3 right there. Go, 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 go. You got it. Let's do some more. Let's go to the phone line, 705. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Sylvain, and I'm calling from Canada, Ontario.
Welcome, Ontario. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I was just, so basically I just passed my A+ last week.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was pretty tough, but other than that, I just had a question about what do you think of internships over like regular employment?
It's one of these areas where in some places in the world, it is expected. It's sort of the normal way of doing things. And back a number of years ago, for instance, in the UK, apprenticeships, especially IT apprenticeships, were very common. It ended up not being, there was a bit of problems with that from a political perspective. There was some issues that kind of brought that whole system, kind of stopped the internship process on the IT side. But that was one where they would put somebody in and effectively you were an intern, you were a paid intern, you were an apprentice. You kind of learned the ropes. I kind of liken it in the US anyway, and maybe in Canada in some ways, to getting that first job working on the help desk. And then if you did good on that help desk, then they would hire you full time to be able to do things. Kind of a nice way to do it. There are not many places in the US that I've seen IT internships. And on top of that, not a lot of places where I've ever seen IT internships for free. Nobody does work for free or shouldn't. You should not be doing work for free, certainly not from an IT perspective.
So basically, sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
So basically, this is a paid internship, but it's at minimum wage.
That's not a bad idea. These days, at least minimum wage is somewhat reasonable. In some cases, it's even better than that in some parts of the world. The thing to think about when you get into these IT positions, and people sometimes don't think about the long-term scope of this, is that a lot of these entry-level positions don't pay a lot. They are what I guess a lot of people consider grunt work. Although when I worked on a help desk, I was on a corporate help desk, I learned a lot about operating systems, hardware, applications. It's a huge learning opportunity. And the employers put you there to first not only see if you are a good employee, that you come in on time and that you leave at the right time, but they also want to see if you're familiar with the technology and want to see how you work with people. Because ultimately, a lot of people don't mention this because we spend all our time talking about operating systems and memory and hard drives and SSDs, is that most of your job is talking to people. You can't do a very good job in IT if you don't talk to people very well. So a lot of employers want to get you on that entry-level position and see how well you do, and then very quickly move you out of that into a higher level position or into a different part of the company. So it's a huge learning opportunity. Anytime you get your foot in the door, it's experience. I don't. It's a great. In fact, it's kind of the normal way to get into an organization is at that entry level position. But I think of it as a great opportunity for learning more and positioning yourself for whatever that next thing is going to be. Because I will tell you, in IT, it will not be your last job. It's not even going to be close to your last job in IT. I think in my career, we counted one time, and I had about 15 different titles in my career as I went from place to place. And I ended up working 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies in my career. So that's one of those situations where you're never in one place for any long period of time. Although my last job, I stayed there 7 years. That was the longest job I ever had in IT. Most other jobs, there were jobs that I had that lasted 9 months, others that lasted 5 years, others that lasted 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then 7, something like that. So it's one of those cases where you are investing in yourself. You're learning as much as you can. And what you're doing is looking for what the next thing is going to be. And on the help desk, you'll get to spend a lot of time with operating systems. Do you like operating systems? Maybe or maybe not. You'll work a lot with networking. Do you like networking? Maybe, maybe not. You work a lot with the data center. Maybe you like data center operations, what they're doing. Maybe the server team and what they're doing. Something is going to pique your interest. Find out what that is. Go talk to those people. Hey, I really like what you're doing there. I was very interested in the project you've got going on that you were talking about. Hey, I would love to be able to sit in one weekend with you guys and what you're doing and just sort of watch over your shoulder. If you need somebody to do some grunt work, put yourself out there, do some investment in your own time. They're going to see that you have an interest in what they're doing, and they're going to want to show you more. One thing that has always been kind of an international, a standard thing across the board is every time I've asked an IT professional, please help me, tell me more about this, they've always said, I would love you to let me do that. I've never had anybody tell me, no, I'm not going to tell you how this works. This is mine and you can't have it. Almost always, 100% of the time, they go, oh, there's plenty of places. Let me tell you where we can start. Do this, look at this, reference this website. Let's meet back and do more of these things. So take advantage of the knowledge of people around you as well. It has a big difference. You're just at the beginning. It's an enormous path that you're on. It's an exciting path that you're on, and there's just no limits. Take advantage of the fact that there are no limits. That's the best advice that I can give you.
Yeah, because I find it really frustrating right now. See, I'm in Canada, and they're looking for both. So they're looking for a college education plus A+
sure
certification.
Everybody
so
wants that. That's kind of the same in the U.S. as well. In fact, if you look at some of the job postings on some of these, they are ridiculous. They want you to have a 4-year education, to be certified in A+ in Cisco. You need to have some type of neurosurgery background and have an understanding of nuclear power. But most of the time, you send in, don't worry about the things you don't have. Just send in your resume. Put the cover page on, talking about their company. And probably the thing that I think helps the most for a lot of people, and I it's kind of hard to do this now, is meet the people that are already in the industry. The way we used to do this back in January and February is we would go to user group meetings. So we would meet the people in these meetings who worked at the companies that were local to us. And it was a Cisco user group meeting, a Microsoft user group meeting, a Palo Alto Networks user group meeting. We would just go and see who was there and introduce ourselves. And where do you work and what do you do? Oh, I'm really interested in that company. What would you recommend I do to have the best shot at getting a job with your organization? That's the question. There you go. That's an easy one to do. So go with that. Figure out the details of those things. I think that may be the best way to approach that. And that may be the way that makes sense for you too. It's kind of hard to do right now. When we ramp back up and have more user group meetings, I think it'd be a little easier to be able to do that. Let's go back to the calls to 832. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hi, my name is John. I just want to make sure that you're able to hear me.
Hi, John. We can hear you fine.
Hello?
What's your question?
Hey, so I had a couple questions. So initially, I got my first IT-related job working at basically Geek Squad.
Sure.
But I'm a bit of a pickle. So because of COVID-19, I got furloughed. So I'm using this time to try to get my certifications.
Great.
Do you think A plus would help me get in the door for maybe like remote IT jobs right now? Or do you think I should just try to maybe land a job maybe within an office? Because I don't know if companies are having hiring freezes with the situation going on.
There's probably quite a bit of hiring freeze going on at this moment, like as we sit here today, but I don't expect that to be something that will last very long. We're going to want to get out and ramp up pretty quick. The thing that is, it's different depending on your geography. For example, in a very congested area like Silicon Valley or LA or New York City, there's probably more remote jobs available than most. But in other areas that are maybe, I live in a not a big city, but a decently sized city of 200,000, 250,000, somewhere in there. In that particular area, probably not a lot of remote jobs. Maybe most of the jobs are probably going into the office. I would probably think government jobs are probably a lot that you are in the office because that's where the equipment is, that's where the people are, and that's where you have to make sure everything is running. And it's helpful if you're in the building and you can work on them as fast as possible. So it's really going to depend on your geography. However, this may be a good opportunity since we have the time. On the job postings where people are looking for remote access people, for somebody to work remotely, what are they looking for? Are they looking for A+? Are they looking for something different? I would think A+ would be the first thing people are looking for those types of positions, whether they're someone working remotely or someone working from the office. As we mentioned earlier, and I've even talked to IT people where this is the case, they've now, after going through all of this changes we made with the pandemic, they've decided, you know what? We're not going in the office anymore. This is great. We're all going to work remotely from now on in IT. Like their particular group wasn't a big group, but a group of folks said, there's no reason for us to be in the office. We're in a data center building, or we're in a building where none of our users are anyway. We're on the phone anyway to all of our users. What's the difference in being on the phone at a desk at a building or being on the phone at a desk at our house? It's exactly the same, as it turns out. And I'm not sure why it took this for people to understand that. So I think that's where you'll find a lot of companies are going to now be a little bit more interested in maybe seeing if you're someone who can work remotely properly. Not everybody can. Not everybody likes to work remotely, as crazy as that sounds. Some people prefer being in an office. So you've got to find the right employer. You got to find the right job, and probably in some cases the right geography. But if you find the right combination, I think you'd be in pretty good shape, John.
All right. Thank you, Professor Messer. And definitely, this is one little quick question.
Sure.
I bought the notes digitally. I don't see an option to actually buy the notes physically because I already have them,
No problem. No problem. If anybody has purchased the digital notes and you're thinking, I'd really like the physical version of these, I can give you a coupon that will allow you to get the physical version that will discount what you've already spent. So you'll never spend double to have to get the physical version. Just open up a ticket from your user, from your member login, or just send me a message on the Contact Us link on my site, and I'll look it up and create the coupon and send you an email telling you exactly how to do that. So there's no extra money out of your pocket.
All right. Thank you, Professor Messer. And definitely this is a good help for me because I have my A+ exam coming up. Well, 101. But, step by step.
I think you're using the time in the best way possible, John. Best of luck.
All right. Thank you, Professor Messer.
I think a lot of people are doing that. I think a lot of people are spending their time. You're sort of offline, or you're waiting for your company to ramp up. What I'm seeing a lot of right now are people that are not IT people that have been laid off and furloughed and thinking, why did I get into this line of work? The moment there's a problem in the world, I suddenly don't have a job. Those IT people are still working. That's what I'd like to do. So I see a lot of people now sort of moving over with these. Question in the chat room, does buying the physical edition come with the digital version as well? Yes, it does. So if you purchase the physical version, you will immediately get a download link to download the digital version. So you can start downloading the digital version. You can put it on all your mobile devices, on your computers, and then wait for the physical version to be shipped in as well. And you get to use both. So the digital version's for free if you buy the physical, which just made sense to me to have that there. Let's go South Florida, 954 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Deerfield Beach, are you there? Hollywood, are you there? Fort Lauderdale, checking in. Are you on mute?
Hello.
There
Hello,
you are.
Professor.
Hi, caller. What's your name?
Yeah, this is Dennis Gomez calling from Washington, D.C.
Oh, so you have a South Florida number, but in D.C. now. What can we do for you?
Yeah. I was calling just because I've tried to take the exam before, and it's been tough to pass it. So I was wondering, where can I find like the practice or the more practical questions of the exam that it talks about, like the Wi-Fi and like how to set up a gaming system, or like the VMware.
I've got a number of questions sort of like this. The challenge on the performance-based questions is they are many and varied. They can ask about a lot of different things. They can ask about, as you mentioned, configuring a system that is set up in a particular way, or configuring a wireless access point in a particular way. And I have questions like that in my practice exams. I tried to even take similar topics. My practice exams are not a duplication. They're not a brain dump. They are questions that I have written from scratch into this particular book. So nothing is copied from anywhere else. You've never seen these questions on my study groups. They are all brand new questions that are only available in my practice exams book. And I've tried to emulate the style and type of exams that you would find on the actual exam. So they're not a duplication, but the topics are very similar. The structure and the things you have to do are similar so that you can get a feel for it. And it also kind of uses the same topics so that you can understand, I'm going to get a topic on RAID. I'm going to get a topic on wireless. I'm going to topic on building a computer, so that you can get a little bit of practice there, so that no matter what they throw at you on the exam, whether it's about building a gaming computer or a virtualization computer or a computer for remote access, you'll immediately know which direction to go with this, because you've already been through the style of questions like that before. And that's really why I built those. A number of those questions are also on my study groups, like the one we did today. You can go back and look at the archive on my website. Not a lot of advanced questions on there, because we can't do advanced questions on this format, but it gives you a style of what matching questions might be, what some fill in the blank questions might be, or at least some of the topics you might run into.
Awesome. And also, I had another question. What would you say is the best approach to? Well, I'm taking the Core 101 soon, so I was just wanting to know what is the best method to study and be ready for it.
I kind of give an overview of this in the first video of every course. Is I have a set of things that I think are the most important things for you to study from, and the method you should use. The number one, and I mention it all the time, is the objectives. Make sure you have a list of those. They are professormesser.com/objectives, or just search for CompTIA Exam Objectives. You'll find them in the Google. And I think the important part from those objectives that people don't understand is it lists out everything you need to know. It doesn't give you an overview of everything you need to know. It tells you exactly what you need to know for the exam. I mean, it gives you bullet by bullet a very comprehensive list of everything you need to know. So go with those at the very beginning. They should be the first thing you reference. They should be the last thing you go to, is those exam objectives. Also, make sure that you use as many study materials as you can. You should get videos. You should get books. You should do hands-on. You should do Q&A. Those are the 4 things. So stick with those 4 in the exam objectives, and you're right there where you should be to be able to do that. From the chat room, how much of the score on the exam comes from the performance-based questions? Don't know. They don't tell you. They don't tell anybody. They don't tell anybody what it's about with their grading. It might be nothing. It might be a lot. It might be some. They don't say. So you can only just do the best you can. There have been people on Reddit who have said, I'm pretty sure I got every performance-based question wrong, and I still passed the exam. I don't know if that's real. I have no way to qualify it. I don't know why they would lie about that. But that kind of gives you a perspective. Even they think they bombed the performance-based questions, and yet they ended up doing fine in the multiple choice. So maybe it's not as much as we think it is. Maybe it's a little less than we think it. I don't know. We'll figure out those details. Do I ship to the UK? I ship pretty much everywhere in the world if that country allows me to ship to them right now. So, for example, I don't ship to South Africa right now. I do ship to South Africa, but South Africa doesn't accept any mail right now from outside. So I can't ship to that. But right now, I think the UK is accepting mail. So yes, I ship to UK. I don't sell my products on Amazon. I recommend you buy things on Amazon, except my books, because I don't sell them on Amazon. So I ship to anywhere you'd like to be able to do that. It's one of those things, the way it works. We'll take another couple calls. I'm sorry that we're sort of after show time here, and I am tight of time myself. But we'll get a couple more in. Let's go to 203. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. How are you? My name is David. I'm from Connecticut. Just wanted to say thank you for all your help. I just passed my Security Plus just about 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
And I started my journey with you back in 2018 with A+.
The Security Plus is a tough one. So congratulations.
Yeah, Thank you. I was on the other end. I don't want to take up too much time. I just wanted to say that, I was on these live videos with A+ 2 years ago, and I just wanted to tell everyone to good luck, and you're at a perfect spot with Professor Messer. Just a little bit of advice is I saved all of my Professor Messer exams as my final exams for myself because I believe that the Professor Messer exams were the most accurate and the most true to the objectives without going too broad. So that would be my little piece of advice is because I did a lot of Cert Master and Cert Blaster, and then I did a lot of exams online, just, resources online, and they went too broad. They went into other topics that were very discouraging to myself, especially for Network Plus. I went into it saying that I wasn't going to pass, and I actually ended up scoring the highest I did out of all three. So be careful with what's out there. And if you're going to use it, but I would definitely reserve the Professor Messer exams as your final review just to confirm and build your confidence from there.
Well, congratulations on all those certifications and getting through those. I appreciate the kind words on the practice exams. I spend a lot of time making them as accurate as possible based on what we've known about doing this, because now I'm on Security Plus, for example. I did a 301, 401, and now the 501 series. So this is the third Security Plus iteration I've gone through. And just like you, I'm still amazed at how many sample exams out there are asking questions on topics that are nowhere listed in the exam objectives. It just boggles my mind. But then again, that's why I wrote the book anyway. So maybe that's good for me. I'll go with that. Congratulations, David.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I won't take up too much of your time, and I hope everyone is well during this tough time, and take care.
Thank you so much, and same on your side. That's fantastic. That's the thing that I don't know why it just drives me crazy. Well, that's what really drove me to write my Q&A books, my practice exam books, is that I would see the questions out there that were asking crazy stuff. And people would send me messages saying, hey, they just asked me this question in this program. Why are they asking me that? I don't know, brother. I have no idea why they would ask you something that's not on the exam objectives. There's way more that you would need to know on the exam objectives. You could spend all your time studying the exam objectives, stick to the exam objectives, never go outside that scope. And as long as you know that content, you're going to pass your exam. Why would you ever go outside that list? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. Do you need to know things outside the list in the world, in life? Yes. Do you need to know anything outside that list of exam objectives for the exam? No, do not go outside that list. I don't know why those exams do that, but like I said, maybe that's a benefit on my side. Now, let's go to 619. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hi, Professor. This is James calling from San Diego, California.
Hey, James. It's James. What can we do for you?
Just want to say thank you, and thank you for all your efforts and your time for putting out all this material for users from A+ to Network to Security. Even though I didn't pass my 220-1001. I'm not here to give a sad story, but I just want to say thank you. But I'm going to stick to the exam objectives, what you just explained to me, or to explain to everybody here. So pretty much my answer is just, my question is just, is there anything else that you would recommend for the retake?
There's a couple things. First, when you took the exam, on your online login on Pearson VUE, they should have given you should have access to the post-exam results page, and that lists out, doesn't tell you the questions you got wrong, but it tells you the areas where the questions were that you got wrong. Do you have access to that?
Yes, I do.
That is a great resource, because now obviously you need to study everything that's in the exam objectives, but it may be able to point out for you that a lot of your questions you got wrong were in the networking section, or they were in the cloud section, or they were in the troubleshooting section. And at least you'll have a place where you can start emphasizing or weighting some of your secondary studies. That's the thing that I think is probably not covered enough, is that's great recon. That's great information to have. So that's the first place to go. The second thing is the exam objectives. They're a great checklist. So going through that checklist and understanding what you need to know about that checklist is important. For example, some folks on the chat room earlier were mentioning, do I need to know the number of pins that are listed in DDR4 memory SDRAM? And my answer is always, do they have the number of pins listed for DDR SDRAM in the exam objectives? No, they do not. Therefore, you don't need to know it. So it's really that simple. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to memorize things that are listed in a number of books, but appear nowhere in the exam objectives. So then people in the chat room going, is that 288 pins? How many pins is it? They're trying to remember. You don't need to know. Nobody cares how many pins are in memory. So thankfully, so there's a ton of things you can kind of get off your list. Now, some things are memorized that you need to know because you might be put in the scenario. A good example today was the types of categories of cable and the highest type of Ethernet standards supported over that cable and at what lengths. That's a pretty common thing that you would need to know. Port numbers, that's a common thing you would need to know. And those are kind of memorization, but you need to know those things from a memorization perspective, but you're never going to be asked a trivia question about those. So a lot of people make flashcards. They go HTTP, TCP port 80, HTTPS, TCP port 483. And they just go down the list of all these port numbers and they memorize what the port numbers and the acronyms are. So it turns out none of that matters. CompTIA doesn't care that you know what the port number and the acronym is. What they care is, how do you use that information? So they might ask, you need to filter out HTTP traffic on a link to a user's workstation. How would you do that? Or what port number would you use to do that? And they might not even say HTTP. They might say web traffic. And then you have to go, oh, wait, web traffic, that's HTTP. This port 80, that's what I put in. So it's like a multi-step process to go through these questions. It's never going to ask you straight up a trivia question that's immediately accessible. It's always in a scenario. It's always an extra step that you have to take to get to the thing that you memorized. Those are the things that are probably the hardest part of the exam to me. But if you have already worked with these technologies, you've read a book, you've watched the video, you've done some hands-on, you've done some Q&A, I think that's the best way to prepare for any of these exams.
I appreciate it, Professor. You have a great rest of your week, and thank you for everything you've done for everybody here.
Thanks, James. Best of luck. I think the study process, it is very similar. It's similar for the CompTIA exams. It's kind of the same process for Microsoft exams, for Cisco exams, for VMware exams, for AWS exams, for Palo Alto Networks exams. It's all the same process. Obviously, a lot of those exams, they don't give you the detailed content that CompTIA does. We're a little spoiled, quite honestly, on the CompTIA side when we're taking a CompTIA exam, because they give you bulleted, detailed exam objectives. if you don't take advantage of this, you'll never have another opportunity in your career where they really give you this level of information, because nobody else does that. Back to the phones, 940. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
I go by Stark. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Hey, Stark in Dallas. What can we do for you?
Well, I'm just now dipping my toes into the, I guess what would be known as the software side, because I've done hardware, cable installs, server installs in new and existing buildings. Well, I'm wanting to get into the tech side, and I've found my interest to be in the security arena.
Sure.
So knowing that, would you suggest still going through to get the A+ and then follow the route, or skip over that, go to network, and then, go from there?
Well, a lot of what you've done already has a little bit of overlap on the A+ side. Certainly the cabling part has a little bit of overlap. There's some server hardware side of this that has a little overlap. There probably is not some, when you get into deeper operating systems and troubleshooting networks and troubleshooting logins and startup problems, that may be a little bit outside the scope, or it may not be. It's really a chance where you can look through that and kind of see, do I know this content already? And then compare that with, for the jobs I'm looking for, are they looking for the A+? Security jobs don't tend to be entry-level positions. We tend to need people in security that already have a knowledge of networks. They already have a good bit of knowledge of operating systems, and then we're leveraging that knowledge to get them into an IT security role. So you usually have to go through a series of steps before you're finally in that entry-level security position. Although there are some areas, you're in a very big area for security and for large companies. There may be a lot of large companies in your area that have security operations centers, or SOCs. And those security operations centers may have a lot of entry-level security positions. So you may have an advantage in your geography that you may be able to skip a lot of the networking and operating systems and go straight into security side, and then you're obviously going to have to kind of learn that on the job as you go. But you may have a few more advantages or flexibility on your side because you are in such a populous area with a lot of technology companies and non-technology companies, financial and other types in your area as well. So, you go to Plano and there's just tons of technology companies, tons of large organizations that have big IT positions. You've got a lot to choose from. So now's the time you get to look at what job postings are out there, or what was out there, and see what they're asking for, and see if you need to leverage some of your knowledge. If every single one of them's asking you for an A+, okay, maybe it's time to sit down for the A+. If they are asking for something else like Security Plus, maybe that's where you start. We have a lot of people that come to my site that are starting their jobs with Department of Defense companies, either with the Department of Defense or with a vendor for the Department of Defense, and they almost exclusively are expecting a Security Plus certification or something compatible. So that's their first foray into this, is Security Plus. They don't even do an A+ or Network Plus. They just skip it completely and go straight to Security Plus. It's very dependent on your scenario.
So you just got to research the basically your geography and what the companies are looking for.
There's no single path. There's no standard way to do this. If you were in nursing, there would be a standard process. You get a nursing degree, you take your state boards, and now you're a registered nurse and you can go work for a hospital. It doesn't work that way in IT. You could have a master's degree and get a job on the help desk. You could have no degree and get a job on the help desk. There's no single path that gets you there. Everybody's following a different road.
Okay, I got you. Okay, well, I appreciate it. And thank you.
Thanks, Stark. Appreciate the call. That's one of the things that we're almost not ready for that, to be able to have that where it could really be anything. My degree is in business management. I do not have a technical degree. And yet I knew from the very beginning I wanted to work in tech. When I was in college, I worked in the computing center with the supercomputers. I knew right out of college that I wanted to work as somebody doing tech. And my first job out of college was a remote technician job. Hopped in the car every morning, went to somebody's office and fixed or installed something to be able to do that. So that's just kind of what I knew I wanted to do. If that probably a lot of people are in the same scenario where you want to work with technology. You just start at the beginning, figure out where you want to go, just find out what the next step is going to be. You don't have to lay it out now. In fact, there's no way to lay out your entire career right now. By the time you've already decided what your next step is going to be, the entire industry changes under your feet. When I started, there was no internet. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was none of this. There was no live streaming video. So I could have never expected or even planned that this is what I would want to finally end up doing in my career, because there was not a thing that allowed me to do that. So it's constant moving. The river is just constantly curving. And sometimes it's curving right under your feet. It's moving so fast. That's great. I think that's huge opportunities. A lot of people think of that as a negative, that, oh, you got to constantly keep up. You got to constantly learn. Well, it's not that hard. You're doing it every day. You're paddling every day. You're on the river every day. You're just keeping up with it. And what's interesting about it is it's different every day. And that's the other thing I love about IT, is that it's never the same. It's always something different. And if you're somebody like me who likes to come in to a job and have something new to do all the time, you aren't on an assembly line. It's not a rote job. It's something that's constantly renewing itself, constantly different, and constantly giving you an opportunity to grow, to make more money, to maybe be in a position to do the things you'd like to do. This is where it is. This is the right place to be. IT is probably the best industry to provide that level of flexibility. Well, we've gone a little over time on our after show. I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here in our first hour and answering questions that I ask you. Come back on Thursday. We do another set for the 220-1002, and we'll do another after show, and we can keep asking questions like this or anything else that you'd like to do from the chat show. Thanks for joining us there. We've got plenty more in the rest of the month. If you'd like to join us for Network Plus and Security Plus, you can always find out when the next event is going to be by going to the calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. Thanks for being here for the live stream, and we will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everyone.